Hi there, I'm Henry.
I'm Jacob.
Also, Jacob, it appears your mic is currently off. And it is Thursday night, a little past 7:30 p.m. CST. Welcome back to Technopoverty. As you can see, Barney is in her place. We are ready to fight for our freedoms. Jacob is playing Kyle Rittenhouse Simulator Freedom Fighters, while I read Paulo Freire's Pedagogy of the Oppressed. We've been working through it bit by bit as Jacob makes his way through the greatest of guerrilla warfare, white power fantasies.
It's true.
You get to fight for your country, but there's no positive notion of country, just the ability to get that legal kill. Freedom fighters. We'll get to that in just a moment. Just to catch back up on Pedagogy of the Oppressed, we were at last point talking about forms of dialogue and anti-dialogue. And I just bring this up because we're going to pick up where he was last left off with the breaking down of anti-dialogue and dialogue. But I saw the Clayface trailer is the way to, I guess, crack open the egg. And there are these ideas, I think, in American society about wanting to be taken seriously while not being serious yourself, if that makes sense. I'm just going to say that trailer was very static and rote and felt like it was made so that you could sit back and just say, ah, yes, of course they'd make a Clayface live-action movie that is also a body horror. If I'm a particular kind of cinephile who likes to make wrong assumptions, I'd even go so far as to say, oh, wow, they made Clayface a David Cronenberg movie.
What everybody wanted.
It's just so slow-moving and irreverent and made to look realistic and to be taken seriously, but there's no earnest hook in it for me. I was complaining or talking about the Avengers Doomsday trailer looking like a PS2 game, but be it as confusing and as incestuous and convoluted as it is, I can see the hooks and I can understand there's some sort of draw trying to get you into the theater. The Clayface movie, that trailer is just, it's moments made to be appreciated, and I mean, the top comment when I checked it on the YouTube trailer was, it is an absolutely genius, brilliant idea to adapt Clayface as a body horror movie. And to me, Jacob, I mean, we're both children of the 90s. I think ever since the Clayface episode of the Batman cartoon dropped, people have been like, that'd be so good live action. They should just get Ray Liotta to play it live action. It is the go-to, just agreeable nerd Batman opinion. I'm saying it's the lowest hanging fruit as far as what to key in. But it is for the person who shares that sentiment to feel like that is the height of what to be said about the movie, or that is why the movie is being made, so that statement could be made. Mm-hmm. I am bringing this back into the Freire because I'm remembering now, and I'm glad I started with the Clayface. It's the result of a culture that is raised on this sort of bucket education, where a lot of your critical takes and platitudes aren't conversation starters. It's just that's my take, that's the end. In a lot of ways, it's very Trumpian. The one thing about the Melania movie that is somewhat interesting, or what I found discernible there, is the way Trump understands how to command the camera in ways other people don't, because they just assume their own importance. And he has that same tick where he's just there to say, it's brilliant that they made the Clayface movie a body horror movie. And I bring up that it's a fact to be memorized, to be deposited, to be brought out. If we're to get back to the Walter Benjamin and the whole the museum display, it's bringing out your action figures and your little kiosk and be yes, these are the things I like. And since we can both agree we like these things that have categorically been placed in the good media bucket, we agree.
Because we need that.
Getting milk was an adventure, I tell y'all.
Oh, great.
Let me pull up the game since Jacob is getting back to it while I continue to ramble about how the results of the oppressor-oppressed education system and the sort of bucket memorization, it prioritizes just the memorizing of facts. Like there's a rote canonical authority who's already ordained things. And so there's no inquiry, just memorize the pattern. Memorize the pattern, run the Sisyphean wheel, here's your paycheck.
Yeah.
It's kind of funny, the schism we're seeing culturally leading to a lot of the Odyssey discourse right now, where people were so bucket-brained and predisposed towards categorizing it in such a manner that there's just an obviously losing side of that culture war that's just delusional now. I'm sure the AI Odyssey is going to be wonderful.
So I'm just going to check some real quick.
Also, yeah, be very careful distributing zines. Although, Jacob, you were doing some mini pamphlet stuff that seems pretty cool. Or testing printing a photo zine.
Yeah, I sent the link in there. I'm Federal Ghoul, just so y'all.
Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, super fun link. I made one a little bit earlier just for making a little photo zine, and it was really fun. You print it on one piece of paper and make one cup with scissors, and then you fold it on itself. It's really fun.
Jot, speaking of printing zines in Texas and Prairie Land and all the fucked up stuff going on, how many of you were aware of what's going on in Crockett, California right now with the strike at the sugar plant? I wasn't aware of what was happening until today when I listened to the newest episode of the TrueAnon podcast. I mean, granted, I'm not a California local.
Yeah, true, but damn.
But yeah, there's a C&H Sugar Factory, I believe it's called, Californian Hawaiian Sugar Company. There's a whole history there. I'd actually suggest checking out the newest TrueAnon because in addition to talking about the news, the current event, they go into the history of that particular company in areas like labor struggles. So it's talking about current event news, but then it's also talking about American labor history. I mean, we were talking about Ludlow not too long ago. We were talking about the Harlan County War a few episodes back. Here we are doing the Frederick Jameson cognitive mapping and tracing that river of history to the present.
Without his leadership, the Soviet armed forces will crumble.
What up, Mask for
I
Mask?
think we're at the end of the game.
All right, well, I should probably get to the end of the book then. But yeah, just keep in mind what I was saying about the Clayface trailer, the banking method, our cultural obsession with the banking depository model of knowledge and the aestheticizing geek culture of all of that. I'm going to get back to talking about anti-dialogue. I have some Odyssey takes I will keep buried down. Let's let Jacob get to the plot. Let me know if there's a cutscene or anything like that.
Yeah, dang, I'm just very excited at how short this game was and how fun it is.
Yeah, I may not have to bust out the emergency Walter Benjamin. I might have to do that on my own or on some other game that you play.
We must assassinate Titania. Without his
Right, we'll do it.
All right, anti-dialogue. Manipulation. Manipulation is another dimension of the theory of anti-dialogical action and, like the strategy of division, is an instrument of conquest, the objective around which all the dimensions of the theory revolve. By means of manipulation, the dominant elites try to conform the masses to their objectives, and the greater the political immaturity of the people, rural or urban, the more easily the latter can be manipulated by those who do not wish to lose their power. Okay, so he says rural or urban, you know, it's not a rural versus an urban thing. You can be rural or urban and be duped into it. Guys, I'm really getting kind of tired of talking about who does and doesn't understand Lord of the Rings. I saw something today that reminded me of Beto O'Rourke, who, as far as I can tell, hasn't said shit about the data center stuff happening in El Paso, Texas.
I haven't heard from him in years.
He's doing voter registration drive stuff for the Democrats in rural Texas and stuff. I mean, get people registered to vote, but it just seems so weirdly hands off for a guy who aspired to be president. But but again, the data center thing. Anyways, this all just reminded me of when he did debut as president. Like, there was that interview where he was just talking about how it was like Lord of the Rings, and it just really was saying, like, I don't think either, like, yeah, as a cultural item, I don't think anybody gets Lord of the Rings, and I think a lot of people are just super nostalgic for the Peter Jackson movies, and we're trapped in that more than, like, this rich tradition of people correctly understanding books. Because there's certainly not that kind of a tradition in any current of America, aside from, you know, nerd circles.
Yeah. Yeah, Stephen Colbert definitely understands.
Yeah, he's the of all
He's
the
the only
people,
one.
like, he's the only one I believe is earnest about it. He does seem like a D&D nerd theater kid, like, I knew that dude in high school type energy.
Yep.
And he shares it with his son, so, like, I don't know, that seems extra, like, complimentary because of the way J.R.R. in his letters to his son is shared so much with Christopher.
Hold on, I'm gonna try to restart this really
Go for it.
fast.
You having some performance issues?
Yeah, we're getting like 30 frames, or like 20 frames a second. I'm like, you know, I know this is like...
That gives me time to beat the book before you beat the game.
Yeah.
Chat. I was at the used bookstore today, and they didn't have the copy of the Alien novelization I was looking for, the 1979 Alien film novelization. I thought I saw it there the other day. I went back, it was gone. But they did have the novelization to Alien Isolation. And I'm very curious, if Jacob started playing Alien Isolation and I started reading Alien Isolation, how coherent would that be? Just let us know what you think about that. If you're watching this on YouTube later, drop a comment. This might be a Haunt Timber experiment.
I just remember I gotten to the part where they introduced the alien, then I was like, I can't get past it because I'm too scared. Like, I'm such a wimp. It's like, was it that, like, me was just like watching horror movies and just like, I would fucking own, and then like playing horror games. Like, no, not me.
All right. The people are manipulated by a series of myths described earlier in this chapter, and by yet another myth, the model of itself, which is bourgeoisie and presents to the people as the possibility for their own ascent. In order for these myths to function, however, the people must accept the world of the bourgeoisie. Within certain historical conditions, manipulation is accomplished by means of pacts between the dominant and the dominated classes. Pacts which, if considered superficially, might give them the impression of a dialogue between the classes. In reality, however, these pacts are not dialogue, because their true objectives are determined by the unequivocal interest of the dominant elites. In the last analysis, pacts are used by the dominators to achieve their own ends. The support given by the people to the so-called national bourgeoisie in defense of so-called national capitalism is an example in point. Sooner or later, these pacts always increase the subjugation of the people. They are proposed only when the people begin, ever naively, to emerge from the historical process, and by this emergence to threaten the dominant elites. I think, have you threatened the dominant elites of your Steam Deck a bit too close and they're feeling threatened, which is why we're feeling performance issues?
Maybe.
The presence of the people in the historical process, no longer as mere spectators, but with the first signs of aggressivity, is sufficiently disquieting to frighten the dominant elites into doubling the tactics of manipulation. I didn't get my $2,000 check.
God damn it. Oh, let's see. Playing horror games with others is easier, in my opinion, either with you on couch or via chat. Oh yeah, very true. Or co-op first, Wesker and Resident Evil 5. Man, actually, I was just thinking we had my buddy from high school, we have a group chat, but he's currently staying at like his boyfriend's like house in a very rural part of the state, which is like tons of woods, but he kept hearing noises. I didn't know what to do, so we did like a Discord video chat with like 5 of us, all just be like, well, let's go explore. Like, you'll be fine as long as like you're on the phone with us.
You're feeding us back here in the submarine. Like, yeah,
exactly. You know, there's hope on the other end of this line, so it was pretty great. Highly recommend.
In this historical phase, manipulation becomes a fundamental instrument to the preservation of domination. Prior to the emergence of the people, there is no manipulation, precisely speaking, but rather total suppression. When the oppressed are almost completely submerged in reality, it is unnecessary to manipulate them. In the anti-dialogical theory of action, manipulation is the response of the oppressor to the new concrete conditions of the historical process. Through manipulation, the dominant elites can lead the people into an unauthentic type of organization and can thus avoid the threatening alternative, the true organization of the emerged and emerging people. The latter have only two possibilities as they enter the historical process. Either they must organize authentically for their liberation, or they will be manipulated by the elites. Authentic organization is obviously not going to be stimulated by the dominators. It is the task of the revolutionary leaders. Again, you have to see the TV glow. There's so much to that movie about living in bad faith with yourself and just like not recognizing what like the macro structure of your world is in ways that are detrimental to your own being.
Yes, you gotta to thine own self be true.
There is still time.
There's always time. You can always.
It happens, however, that large sectors of the oppressed form an urban proletariat, especially in the more industrialized centers of the country. Although these sectors are occasionally restive, they lack revolutionary consciousness and consider themselves privileged. Manipulation, with its series of deceits and promises, usually finds fertile ground here. The antidote to manipulation lies in a critically conscious revolutionary organization, which will pose to the people as problems their position in the historical process, the national reality, and manipulation itself. In the words of Francisco Weffert, all the policies of the left are based on the masses and depend on the consciousness of the latter. If that consciousness is confused, the left will lose its roots and certain downfall will be imminent. Although, as the Brazilian case, the left may be deluded into thinking it can achieve the revolution by means of a quick return to power. Although, as in the Brazilian case, the left may be deluded into thinking it can achieve the revolution by means of a quick return to power. Wow, you just in a quick 4 years. Just give me 4 years, Jack.
You mean like when the Democrats back in, they're finally going to get the Epstein files out?
I mean,
they're finally going to. It's finally going to happen.
Obama codified Roe v. Wade, right?
Yeah, it was his first. He was going to do it first thing. He swears.
Oh my God, it's so just. Any of you who have
Painfully obvious.
expressed any DSA sympathetic feelings and how mild that as a thing is, just consider how much braver you're being than the fucking paid columnists who are just like, we need to have a formal schism. All these leftists are leeches. Maybe we should join the R's. Yeah, remember when they shut down Gitmo? I mean, speaking of Gitmo, I have been listening to the it's not the most recent, I think, Behind the Bastards, but it's a fairly recent.
Sorry.
It's the most fairly recent. It's the series on Behind the Bastards about SEAL Team 6 and the founder of SEAL Team 6.
Yeah. Let's see.
You still getting choppy performance?
Yeah.
Is it the monitor itself? I've had that issue before. I like how you're giving me prime time to get ahead on the reading, and I'm here talking about other stuff with the chat.
You know, truly. Move away from these people for the time being as I can, because right now it looks like a butt.
Yeah, your frames are just real choppy.
Yeah, like down to like fucking 20. Like this game is so old.
Manipulation, like the conquest whose objectives it serves, attempts to anesthetize the people so they will not think. For if the people join to their presence in the historical process, critical thinking about the process, the threat of their emergence materializes in revolution. I like this idea of like revolution in the sense of like getting a critical thinking engine going in people just so that they can recognize how to like have a grounded observation and analysis of the world, and through that you can feed in other education. I think this is definitely like the way to empower yourself as far as an educational method in the anarchic sense goes. I mean, I think of this is a real superficial example, but I think of like there's a reel out there, maybe it's like 2 years old by now, but it was Martin Scorsese and like one of his kids just going through slang, and like he knew slang, he recognized like slang terms right off the top pretty fast and easy, like he's still with it, and it's not like, I don't think that comes from a sense of Martin Scorsese being insecure and wanting to be seen as cool with the youth. I think he just has like the sort of curious type of brain that keeps him inquisitive enough to understand contextually like how to pick up on that stuff.
He loves that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
He just loves life. He's a true lover of life and wants to know more.
And yeah, and I think that's really what gets stymied when it comes to like this kind of bucket type mentality. We've talked a bit about like the learned helplessness of the boomers before, and there is just like a limited like I can't imagine, I can't do, I'm afraid to break kind of anxiety that it instills.
It's wild. I often forget like how much we have imagination and there's just some people who just do not have.
Yeah, I think
skill.
about like when we were playing Silent Hill and we talked about like when they did the D&D, the pastel D&D art, and it pissed off so many chuds who are like, this is too soft. It's like, well, like they don't have enough RAM to hold both images in their head, and they got really mad they had to restart their computer. And it's like, well, if you've been like, you know, reading and like reframing your approach towards curiosity, you might be able to hold both images in your head without getting mad.
Yeah, and just be like, wow, this is actually kind of cool.
Yeah, because this frustrates me. Me and Lux have conversations about this. Like, Lux really wants to do like an essay or a channel or something on just like how to watch a movie, just because of the way people will approach like reading a film in like certain like bad faith ways, or ways that kind of like are like trying to outsmart the thing or be anti-dialogical to the thing instead of in dialogue and conversation with it.
Yeah.
A lot of that's happening on our discords various discords we lurk on in regards to Christopher Nolan's The Odyssey this past week, which a very good movie the more I think on it. Like, I walked out of it going like, that's pretty good, maybe middle of the pack as far as Nolan's filmography goes, but that's still like a cut above a regular like kind of blockbuster thing.
Yeah.
But I don't know, maybe I'm growing on it a bit more after there's a few of the quirks I ruminate a bit more on.
That's fair. Still have an issue.
Part of it does make me think of the manipulation and the recognition of like when like your historical participation breaks something. I do gotta say Nolan minds that idea a bit, like Odysseus recognizing like the law of hospitality. He just like violates, like it's like a macro structural like, oh no, I broke the world kind of thing, and I really dig that aspect to it.
Hell yeah.
Hell yeah, oh man. I don't think anything I'm saying about it spoils it, because everybody kind of knows the general idea, macro level outline of the Odyssey. And I think by pointing out the like thematic complement stuff Nolan's doing, I'm not spoiling anything. You still have to really take it in the imagery and just like the haptic sense of space he's filling the frame with, because like boy howdy, there's some landscapes.
Yeah.
Manipulation, like the conquest whose objectives it serves, attempts to anesthetize the people so they will not think. For if the people join to their presence in the historical process, critical thinking about that process, the threat of their emergence materializes in revolution. Whether one calls this correct thinking revolutionary consciousness or class consciousness, it is an indispensable precondition of revolution. The dominant elites are so well aware of this fact that they instinctively use all means, including physical violence, to keep the people from thinking. They have a shrewd intuition of the ability of dialogue to develop a capacity for criticism. They have a shrewd intuition of the ability of dialogue to develop a capacity for criticism. That right there, like that's so just such a great maxim about just the capacity of dialogue to develop criticism. Just talking to people, like, hey, this is how my life's going, how's your life going? Like, do we agree this is what our lives should be doing? I mean, that seems to be why we organize society in terms of like, how do we mitigate the worst shit from happening to us? I think Deadwood's very good at getting that kind of negative construction across better than any kind of high-minded, like, there is justice and a God we serve. I think it's kind of telling that even a lot of transphobes have shut up about it too. Yeah, there's that really fucking slimy Ben Shapiro just like, you know, it's good even though it has a trans person in it. Like, shut the fuck up, just, why you gotta be that way,
Just
dude?
enjoy the movie.
Fuck. Mask, Lux was sharing, there was a pretty good little quick take criticism essay about Elliot Page's place in the movie specifically that I found kind of interesting. I don't really off the dome have it internalized in a way that I feel confident talking about here on stream. I think I shared it on our Discord. I forget if you have access there or if you're present there currently. But otherwise, I know Lux was sharing it like on Blue Sky. One of the methods of manipulation is to inoculate individuals with the bourgeoisie appetite for personal success. This manipulation is sometimes carried out directly by the elites and sometimes indirectly through populist leaders. As Weffert points out, these leaders serve as intermediaries between the oligarchical elites and the people. The emergence of populism as a style of political action thus coincides casually with the emergence of the oppressed. The populist leader who rises from this process is an ambiguous being, an amphibian who lives in two elements. Shuttling back and forth between the people and the dominant oligarchies, he bears the marks of both groups. Since the populist leader simply manipulates instead of fighting for authentic popular organization, this type of leader serves the revolution little if at all. Only by abandoning his ambiguous character in dual action, and by opting decisively for the people, thus ceasing to be populist, does Barack Obama renounce manipulation and dedicate himself to the revolutionary task of organization. At this point, he ceases to be an intermediary between the people and the elites, and becomes a contradiction of the latter. Thereafter, the elites immediately join forces to curb him. Observe the dramatic and finally unequivocal terms in which Getúlio Vargas spoke to the workers at a May 1st celebration during his last period as a head of state. I want to tell you that the gigantic work of renewal which my administration is beginning to carry out cannot be completed successfully without the support of the daily steadfast cooperation of the workers. Vargas then spoke of his first 90 days in office, which he called an estimate of the difficulties and obstacles which, here and there, are being raised in opposition to the actions of the government. He spoke directly to the people about how deeply he felt the helplessness, poverty, and high cost of living, low salaries, the hopelessness of the unfortunate, and the demands of the majority who live in hope for better days. His appeal to the workers then took on more objective tones. Yes. Captain Quasar, good pointing out that. Also, welcome, Captain Quasar.
Yeah, good to see you, Captain.
I've come to say that at this moment the administration does not yet have the laws or the concrete instruments for immediate action to defend the people's economy. It is thus necessary for the people to organize, not only to defend their own interests, but also to give the government the base of support it requires to carry out its objectives. I need your unity. I need for you, in solidarity, to organize yourselves in unions. I need for you to form a strong and cohesive bloc to stand beside the government so that it will have all the force it needs to solve your problems. I need your unity so that you can fight against saboteurs, so you do not fall prey to the interest of speculators and rapacious scoundrels, and a detriment to the interest of the people. The hour has come to appeal to the workers. Unite in your unions as free and organized forces. At the present time, no administration can survive or dispose of sufficient force to achieve its social ends if it does not have the support of the laboring organizations. Ooh, we should look into the production. I'm curious now. I'm honestly not as aware of like everything BTS as far as what's going on with the Odyssey.
Yeah, other than it camera big, I'm really outside of like what's happening with it.
We had to look into mirrors, and you couldn't tell. You can tell. I like the movie, but guys, you can tell.
Yeah. An interesting issue too. To be like, yeah, there's this weird thing.
In sum, in this speech, Vargas appealed vehemently to the people to organize and to unite in defense of their rights, and he told them, as chief of state, of the obstacles, the hindrances, and the innumerable difficulties involved in governing with them. From that moment on, his administration encountered increasing difficulties until the tragic climax of August 1954. If Vargas had not in his last term shown such open encouragement to the organization of the people, subsequently linked to a series of measures in defense of the national interest, possibly the reactionary elites would not have taken the extreme measures they did. Any populist leader who moves even discreetly towards the people in any way other than as the intermediary of the oligarchies will be curbed by the latter, if they have sufficient force to stop him. But as long as the leader restricts himself to paternalism and social welfare activities, although there may be occasional divergences between him and groups of oligarchies whose interests have been touched, deep differences are rare. This is because welfare programs as instruments of manipulation ultimately serve the end of conquest. They act as an anesthetic, distracting the oppressed from the true causes of their problems and from the concrete solution of these problems. I just want to highlight here, I'm definitely sure what he means here is more the ways in which means-tested programs suffocate and trickle and decide who amongst the least of us gets to like be supported by what the state feels like handing out. Whereas like a more egalitarian universal system would be preferable. This is not a libertarian right-wing like welfare creates leeches and lazy people type argument. Like he's talking about the anesthetizing force of it, and like this is a different critique than what you'll hear like the neocon neoliberal critique be as far as like affordability and like bootstrapping. They splinter the oppressed into groups of individuals hoping to get a few more benefits for themselves. See, the way he turns people dog eat dog. This situation contains, however, a positive element. The individuals who receive some aid always want more. Those who do not receive aid, seeing the example of those who do, grow more envious and also want assistance. I just want to drink my fish. I just want to kiss my truck. For some reason, I gotta have bathroom laws for that. Since the dominant elites cannot aid everyone, they end by increasing Since the dominant elites cannot aid everyone, they end by increasing the restiveness of the oppressed. The revolutionary leader should take advantage of the contradictions of manipulation by posing it as a problem to the oppressed, with the objective of organizing them. Cultural invasion. The theory of anti-dialogical action has one last fundamental characteristic, cultural invasion, which, like divisive tactics and manipulation, also serves the ends of conquest. In this phenomenon, the invaders penetrate the cultural context of another group, in disrespect of the latter's potentialities. They impose their own view of the world upon those that they invade and inhibit the creativity of the invaded by curbing their expression.
I'm sorry to have to tell you this. You must assassinate Todd.
Whether urbane or harsh, cultural invasion is thus always an act of violence against the persons of the invaded culture, who lose their originality or face the threat of losing it. In cultural invasion, as in all the modalities of anti-dialogical action, the invaders are the authors of and actors in the process. Those they invade are the objects. The invaders mold. Those they invade are molded. The invaders choose. Those they invade follow that choice, or are expected to follow it. The invaders act. Those they invade have only the illusion of acting, through the action of the invaders. All domination involves invasion. At times physical and overt, at times camouflaged, with the invader assuming the role of a helping friend. In the last analysis, invasion is a form of economic and cultural domination. Invasion may be practiced by a metropolitan society upon a dependent society, or it may be implicit in the domination of one class over another within the same society. Cultural conquest leads to the cultural inauthenticity of those who are invaded. They begin to respond to the values, the standards, and the goals of the invaders. And their passion to dominate, to mold others to their patterns and their way of life, the invaders' desire to know how those they've invaded apprehend reality, but only so they can dominate the latter more effectively. In cultural invasion, it's essential that those who are invaded come to see their reality with the outlook of the invaders, rather than their own. For the more they mimic the invaders, the more stable the position of the latter becomes. This is why Sinners is such a big-brained vampire movie, because I want your jazz music so that I can just keep playing the Rocky Road to Dublin, I want that guitar so that I can keep making people dance to my folk music.
Doing the same shit, and you can join me.
We're all cool here. We like to party and dance, right? We all dance to music. You like music. I like music. Why don't we always listen to my music?
Fuck yeah.
What up, D. Hamill's mammal? To banish go. Man, I love that rendition, but it was very funny to me when Sinners first came out, how many white people came out of the theater being like, the best part's the vampire song.
The amount of people.
Even unaware or trying to grasp at a faux sense of I'm Irish in the same way a cop will.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, don't come on, chat. You can let Mask through.
Oh hell yeah! What?
For cultural invasion to succeed, it is essential that those invaded become convinced of their intrinsic inferiority. Since everything has its opposite, if those who are invaded consider themselves inferior, they must necessarily recognize the superiority of the invaders. The values of the latter thereby become the pattern for the former. The more invasion is accentuated in those invaded or alienated from the spirit of their own culture and from themselves, the more the latter want to be like the invaders, to walk like them, dress like them, talk like them. The social I of the invaded person, like every social I, is formed in the socio-cultural relations of the social structure, and therefore reflects the duality of the invaded culture. This duality, which was described earlier, explains why invaded and dominated individuals, at a certain moment of their existential experience, almost adhere to the oppressor thou. The oppressed I must break with this near adhesion to the oppressor thou, drawing away from the latter in order to see him more objectively, at which point she critically recognizes herself to be in contradiction with the oppressor. In so doing, he considers as a dehumanizing reality the structure in which he's being oppressed. This qualitative change is the perception of the world that can only be achieved in the praxis. Cultural invasion is on the one hand an instrument of domination, and on the other, the result of domination. Thus, cultural action of a dominating character, like other forms of anti-dialogical action, in addition to being deliberate and planned, is in another sense simply a product of oppressive reality. For example, a rigid and oppressive social structure necessarily influences the institution of child rearing and education within that structure. These institutions pattern their action after the style of the structure and transmit the myths of the latter. Homes and schools, from nurseries to universities, exist not in the abstract, but in time and space. Within the structures of domination, they function largely as agencies which prepare the invaders of the future. The parent-child relationship in the home usually reflects the objective cultural conditions of the surrounding social structure. If the conditions which penetrate the home are authoritarian, rigid, and dominating, the home will increase the climate of oppression. As these authoritarian relations between parents and children intensify, children in their infancy increasingly internalize the paternal authority. It's not just that your dad can't express his feelings, it's that he must not, because then he's afraid he will mold you into a vulnerable to the machine piece of prey. There's compounding anxieties, as always. Or perhaps your dad did not have any anxieties at all, and there's a different set of psychological factors in your character. It's a big, complex world, y'all.
Truly. Nice, I killed him.
The gay cop who wasn't allowed to march for Pride.
God, I really don't like to speak on pride things as being a cisgendered white male, but like I've had some gay friends who have been cops and then tried to explain to them like how pride started and like why cops shouldn't be invited to the pride events. You know.
Yeah.
That's like, it reminds me of that old sketch where it's like, you know, my grandfather like helped the civil rights movement. He was the woman telling Rosa Parks to get out of his seat, and like, what had happened without him? Like, just same kind of energy with cops going to Pride.
I won't say too much about it because it's the next book, but that does remind me of not Black Flame, but Gretchen Felker-Martin's first book, Manhunt. Does a good thing with like the idea that like, okay, so like the biological males are dead, but like you can still be a man, like in the gendered sense. The way that that is utilized in that book to make its point, I think is very effective.
Oh no. Damn.
Mass says, Jacob, I think it's an important convo to have with gay cops.
It really
Sorry to giggle at that. It's not a phrase I really say. I don't really ever say those words out loud in that order.
It's a very weird position to have found myself in, when I've never thought that I would ever find myself in, but, you know. No one's perfect, especially cops.
I'm here to serve my community, earn a paycheck, and stalk my ex-girlfriend. For example, a rigid and oppressive social structure necessarily influences the institutions of child rearing and education within that structure. These institutions pattern their action after the style of the structure and transmit the myths of the latter. Homes and schools, from nurseries to universities, exist not in the abstract, but in time and space. Within the structures of domination, they function largely as agencies which prepare the invaders of the future. The parent-child relationship in the home usually reflects the objective cultural conditions of the surrounding social structure. If the conditions which penetrate the home are authoritarian, rigid, and dominating, the home will increase the climate of oppression. As these authoritarian relations begin, parents and children intensify. As these authoritarian relations between parents and children intensify, children in their infancy increasingly internalize the paternal authority. Presenting, with his customary clarity, the problem of necrophilia and biophilia, Fromm analyzes the objective conditions which generate each condition, whether in the home, parent-child relations, in a climate of indifference and oppression, or of love and freedom, or in a socio-cultural context. If children reared in an atmosphere of lovelessness and oppression, children whose potency has been frustrated, do not manage during their youth to take the path of authentic rebellion, they will either drift into total indifference, alienated from reality by the authorities and the myths of the latter, and the myths the latter have used to shape them, or they may engage in forms of destructive action. The atmosphere of the home is prolonged in the school, where the students soon discover that, as in the home, in order to achieve some satisfaction, they must adapt to the precepts which have been set from above. One of these precepts is not to think. Internalizing paternal authority through the rigid relationship structure emphasized by the school, these young people tend, when they become professionals, because of the very fear of freedom instilled by these relationships, to repeat the rigid patterns in which they were miseducated. This phenomenon, in addition to their class position, perhaps explains why so many professionals adhere to anti-dialogical action. Whatever the specialty that brings them into contact with the people, they are almost unshakably convinced that it's their mission to give the latter their knowledge and techniques. Okay, to go back to Lord of the Rings and the cultural misunderstanding of it, there is a very clear passage in there in which Tolkien talks about how orc talk is petty and redundant and isn't actually saying anything at all. It's very reflective of what I'm talking about with like these bucket platitudes and this bucket mode of cultural education. You know, the recitation of facts, but like it doesn't really mean anything. It's just there to have curated takes.
Yeah, we're just saying the thing.
Yeah, and I feel like that orc talk is such a thing as like...
Capitalism.
Yeah, I was about to say it's kind of what gets recreated in the workplace, because in an office environment, you know, people are anxious about committing offense. I'm not trying to say like, oh, the office HR lady won't let me say slurs, but just like the panopticon atmosphere of being observed in the workplace and wanting to have like agreeable, non-boat rocking conversations, and like being limited because like you need to have those conversations with people horizontal to you in solidarity, but then you're also being observed vertically. So it's like you guys can't talk about like if you actually hate the job like in front of, you know, the powers that be. They might get mad.
Yeah, you can't actually have a true conversation about the issues.
So like, yeah, I think that's one thing I don't think ever gets talked about or really looked at if we're going to be talking about understanding what Lord of the Rings is about. Because, I mean, there are named weapons within Lord of the Rings. Like, yes, the Palantir is evil, but there's also a fucking kick-ass sword that lights a flame called Anduril. And, like, there are solutions to things that require violence and force. Like, friend of the show, Hey Surge, really pointed this out when we were talking about it, but, like, they use the wizard staff on Wormtongue. They don't spell check him. They don't correct his grammar or tell him sarcastically with a quip that he stinks and he has bad rhetoric and he should be ashamed of himself and he should get out of there. No, Gandalf's like, haha, I snuck a staff in, here's some magic. So just, I don't know if there's any kind of real world thing you can say analogous to use the wizard staff on the bad guy, but Jacob, I think some people need to use the wizard staff on the bad guy, you know?
I agree wholeheartedly.
Yeah, exactly, Mask. Because, like, that is one of those things that is pretty well considered and like psychologically interesting as far as the linguistics, because Tolkien was a languages guy. And so it's like from a linguist perspective how he's trying to reflect like a poverty of imagination and evil through like characterizing what their language is capable of doing or not doing. And that's so happening to line up with this Christian socialist view of like what is authentic and inauthentic dialogue. How come no one talks about that lesson from Lord of the Rings? Internalizing paternal authority through the rigid relationship structure emphasized by the school, these young people tend, when they become professionals, because of the very fear of freedom instilled by these relationships, to repeat the rigid patterns in which they were miseducated. This phenomenon, in addition to their class position, perhaps explains why so many professionals adhere to anti-dialogical action. Whatever the specialty that brings them into contact with the people, they are almost unshakably convinced that it is their mission to give the latter their knowledge and techniques. Again, like the whole Clayface movie and just appreciating that they did like a body horror movie about Clayface. It's like, well, you just want your take to be seen as like clever and like astute.
Like, yes, they agreed with me. Like, you really want everyone to agree with you?
Your 9 out of 10 review is just like, please fill your bucket with this fact. Keep it on your shelf.
Yeah.
Please display it to other people. And like when there's genuine dialogue and like interesting ideas and exchange in the language, yes, talk and share and gab about it, but like, again, ever since Feet of Clay came out as an episode, people have been saying this should be a live action movie, it should be like a David Cronenberg Splatterhouse thing. Since the internet was born, I can think of forums where I've just seen that post top voted most redundant.
All the time.
Can you stop mentioning this on the comics threads on not 4chan, GameFAQs? Like on 4chan, it would just fade away. But like, I could see it on like a more moderate forum where they're like, "Hey, there's too much traffic on this particular topic. Can you keep it in the pinned?" Microface, live action, OME's part of the squad. I mean, the real zany novelty take would be trying to turn a Clock King movie. Just doing a Silence of the Lambs style Clock King movie, although that doesn't seem that far off to me now that I think about how much like the Riddler in Pattinson Batman was a Fincher villain. No, is Microface an actual dude? Or are you just making up a dude for the bit, Ja?
Who's this Microface?
Whatever the specialty that brings them into contact with the people, they are almost unshakably convinced that it is their mission to give the latter their knowledge and techniques. They see themselves as promoters of the people. Their programs of action, which might have been prescribed by any good theorist as of oppressive action, include their own objectives, their own convictions, and their own preoccupations. They do not listen to the people, but instead plan to teach them how to cast off the laziness which creates underdevelopment. To these professionals, it seems absurd to consider the necessity of respecting the view of the world held by the people. The professionals are the ones with a world view. They regard as equally absurd the affirmation that one must necessarily consult the people when organizing the program content of educational action. They feel that the ignorance of the people is so complete that they are unfit for anything except to receive the teachings of the professionals. Pokemon Go to the polls. When, however, at a certain point of their existential experience, those who have been invaded begin in one way or another to reject this invasion, to which they might earlier have adapted, the professionals, in order to justify their failure, say that the members of the invaded group are inferior because they're ingrates, shiftless, diseased, or of mixed blood. Or
reasonable.
Or they just deserve it. Just act of God. Those people deserve it.
That's true, guys. Why are we gonna make it all complicated? They could just deserve it.
What if those people just deserve it?
I'm done.
What if I just lens everything that's happening in the world because people just deserved it and there's just nothing you can do about it, you know? Well-intentioned professionals, those who use invasion not as deliberate ideology but as the expression of their own upbringing, eventually discover that certain of their educational failures must be ascribed not to the intrinsic inferiority of the simple men of the people, but to the violence of their own act of invasion. Those who make this discovery face a difficult alternative. They feel the need to renounce invasion, but patterns of domination are so entrenched within them that this renunciation would become a threat to their own identities. To renounce invasion would mean ending their dual status as dominated and dominators. It would mean abandoning all the myths which nourish invasion, and starting to incarnate dialogical action. For this very reason, it would mean to cease being over or inside as foreigners, in order to be with as comrades. And so the fear of freedom takes hold of these men. During this traumatic process, they naturally tend to rationalize their fear with a series of evasions. The fear of freedom is greater still in professionals who have not yet discovered for themselves the invasive nature of their action, and who are told that their action is dehumanizing. Not infrequently, especially at the point of decoding concrete situations, training course participants ask the coordinator in an irritated manner, "Where do you think you're steering us anyway?" The coordinator isn't trying to steer them anywhere. It's just that in facing a concrete situation as a problem, the participants begin to realize that if their analysis of the situation goes any deeper, they'll either have to divest themselves of their myths or reaffirm them. Divesting themselves of and renouncing their myths represents, at that moment, an act of self-violence. On the other hand, to reaffirm those myths is to reveal themselves. The only way out, which functions as a defense mechanism, is to project onto the coordinator their own usual practices, steering, conquering, and invading. This does remind me of Odyssey arguments as far as like what people want to see depicted when they hear the words epic myth, because Jacob, I took humanities courses in college where we read the Iliad, the Odyssey, the Bible, a bunch of Greek myths, all kinds of just comparative mythology stuff. The Odyssey is classified as a romance, and that's like an academic categorization thing. There's a lot of features of it as far as it having a happy ending, it having a time gap. Like, it is an epic poem, but it's like an epic romance. Like the Iliad is the tragic kind of war, and then the Odyssey is kind of the romantic reconstitution after the war.
Yeah.
As kind of how those two things work. But I bring you up because you hear the words romantic and you think of, you know, a very contemporary like love novel romantic sense, but there's also the romance of the sea, the romance of the travel, the romance of being lost and like being separated from your wife for so long, and like the reunion of the het norms. All the kind of like chud takes seem to think it's like more of a conquering novel about like being the Super Mario Brothers. He's storming the castle and getting the princess, and even the Iliad's not about that. It's funny because the Iliad, also being a very old, one of the oldest stories about war, is so critical of war. Like, Achilles is arrogant and like everybody fucking dies in stupid ways, and it's like just such a big shame. Like, the last book is about going through a graveyard of bodies. And so, yeah, in that bucket brain sense, I think there's just a lot of dudes who hear the words like epic poem and they think like, bro, there's like big old titties and a dragon.
Yeah, epic, bro.
Oh, epic. Fuck, I think of the South Park bit where like they have like the Van Halen concert in, I think, Israel. And the dude's just like, epic, because the symbols combine.
Oh, yeah.
The Star of David and the sickle and the cross. I've heard the return is more who the fuck are you to come back 20 years later. Yeah. Actually, Mask, I do think we're going to watch The Return on the Discord after The Monkey. This week on the Discord, this upcoming Sunday, we're going to be watching The Monkey. Week after, I think we'll be watching The Return. Also, funnily enough, because movie discussions, reading movie discussions, talking about the Odyssey with fellow goblins, sometimes co-host Lux, Michael Bay's Ambulance is like, now that the Biden era is over, I'm like, that's the Biden era. That movie's the Biden era, you know? Yeah. Everything's broken, everything's fucked, but like, if you're an exceptional person, the law will permit you a legal kill to get away with everything. You just have to live through hell for the whole day. But then you get to clock out at the end, and then you know what? Next day, same shit's gonna happen.
Same fucking thing.
Don't mind that America, like that movie is like, the concept of Imperial Boomerang, Jacob, I think is very on display there, because that movie is, you know, they're chasing an ambulance through LA and they have like the full force of like the security state just on this ambulance, like drones, feds, just like urban warfare that looks straight out of like Kabul during the global war on terror, but it's downtown LA. Like, the war is home in that movie, and I think there's something very interesting and Biden-esque about that was really coming back to my mind when talking about with Lux. Also, because of recent events with Plattner, I was like, Jake Gyllenhaal's character in Ambulance is just Graham Plattner. Like, he's the wild, rough white boy who thinks he's like, he gets to be cool with it.
Yeah. I'm the cool one,
Yeah. He's like, I said fuck the police, so like we're all cool and have the same grievance, right? In the same way I've rambled before about Plattner's whole thing being like, well, I said fuck Israel, do I have to wipe my ass? Like,
Yeah.
Elder Bane, the Chopin era. Oh, you're talking about Ray, not Bay. What up, a ghost bro? It is the cool ghost. We're talking about how Michael Bay's Ambulance is, for me, it's the Biden era document, just as far as like its depiction of like the absurdities of being a individualist striver in America.
Oh no.
Like, is it cool that America's a rotting hellscape? Like, if you get to be like the fetish protagonist of a Michael Bay narrative, yes.
Go to go home, fuck the prom queen. It's fucking awesome.
Yeah, there's always something too that's like Michael Bay consistently, I think, in a way that's not as intentional as say like Nolan's fatherhood thematics and shit like that. Michael Bay like always catches like the unintentional dissonance of like the American victim, like, because like all his characters are aggrieved by the state. But like they're also like of a certain like state-sanctioned valor that it's permissible for them to get revenge. Like,
yes.
Like all of Michael Bay's protagonists, it's like this guy can break the law, but like he's like everybody's clapping because of it. Like, yeah. Again, as I introduced at the start of this stream, Jacob's playing a Kyle Rittenhouse simulator right now. Like, you're not reforming a government. You're not like rethinking an electoral structure. You're not abolishing the Supreme Court. You're not putting age limits on senators.
Why did I do that, bro? When I could just
Why would you do
shoot
any of
people?
that? The whole purpose in play is for this play. As is a large chunk of American media and the legal system. Like, we straight up call it castle doctrine, like it's your fortress. Like, Billy, do you want to protect your treehouse?
Yeah, Billy, it's okay. You were justified in killing that man. And your lemonade stand. He stood his ground.
The fear of freedom is greater still in professionals who have not yet discovered for themselves the invasive nature of their action, and who are told that their action is dehumanizing. Not infrequently, especially at the point of decoding concrete situations, training course participants ask the coordinator in an irritated manner, "Where do you think you're steering us anyways?" The coordinator isn't trying to steer them anywhere. It is just that in facing concrete situation as a problem, the participants begin to realize that if their analysis of the situation goes any deeper, they'll either have to divest themselves of their myths or reaffirm them. Divesting themselves and renouncing their myths represents, at that moment, an act of self-violence. On the other hand, to reaffirm those myths is to reveal themselves. The only way out, which functions as a defense mechanism, is to project onto the coordinator their own usual practices, steering, conquering, and invading. This same retreat occurs, though on a smaller scale, among men of the people who have been ground down by the concrete situation of oppression and domesticated by charity. One of the teachers of Full Circle, which carried out a valuable educational program in New York City under the coordination of Robert Fox, relates the following incident. A group in a New York ghetto was presented a coded situation showing a big pile of garbage on a street corner, the very same street where the group was meeting. One of the participants said at once, "I see a street in Africa or Latin America, and why not New York?" asked the teacher. "Because we're the United States, and that can't happen here." Beyond a doubt, this man and some of his comrades who agreed with him were retreating from a reality so offensive to them that even to acknowledge that reality was threatening. For an alienated person, conditioned by a culture of achievement and personal success, to recognize his situation as objectively unfavorable seems to hinder his own possibilities of success. In the case cited, and in that of the professionals, The determining force of the culture which develops the myths men subsequently internalize is evident. In both cases, the culture of the dominant class hinders the affirmation of men as beings of decision. Neither the professionals nor the discussion participants in the New York slums talk and act for themselves as active subjects of the historical process. None of them are theoreticians or ideologues of domination. On the contrary, they are effects in which in turn become causes of domination. This is one of the most serious problems the revolution must confront when it reaches power. This stage demands maximum political wisdom, decision, and courage from the leaders, who for this very reason must have sufficient judgment not to fall into irrationally sectarian positions. Professional women and men of any specialty, university graduates or not, are individuals who have been determined from above by a culture of domination which has constituted them as dual beings. If they had come from a lower class, then this miseducation would be the same, if not worse. These professionals, however, are necessary to the reorganization of the new society. And since many among them, even though afraid of freedom and reluctant to engage in humanizing action, are in truth more misguided than anything else, they not only could be, but ought to be, reclaimed by the revolution. This reclamation requires that the revolutionary leaders, progressing from what was previously dialogical cultural action, initiate the cultural revolution. At this point, revolutionary power movers beyond its role as a necessary obstacle confronting those who wish to negate humanity, and assumes a new and bolder position, with a clever invitation to all who wish to participate in the reconstruction of society. In this sense, cultural revolution is a necessary continuation of the dialogical cultural action which must be carried out before the revolution reaches power. Cultural revolution takes the total society to be reconstructed, including all human activities, as the object of its remolding action. Society cannot be reconstructed in a mechanistic fashion. The culture which is culturally recreated through revolution is the fundamental instrument for this reconstruction. Cultural revolution is the revolutionary regime's maximum effort at conscientiousao. It should reach everyone, regardless of their personal path. Again, just make everyone conscious. We need to get a boat. What's going on in the chat?
Gotta get a boat, apparently.
The bears don't like the water. They can live in the forest outside the walls. Cocaine hippos? Man, I am so lost on the chat. A ghost bear is on boat. Mask says, when I wrote a TTRPG one-shot for stream a couple years ago, I set it on an actual our island, one with the naval station. Since it was set in the coming Civil War. Had the Nazis blow up the bridge when they sacked the station. It was very, very scary even writing it. Most of Rhode Island's mainland, but I live on an island. That's cool. Any ghosts?
Where else a fun time?
My sister went to college up there.
Oh, nice. Ah, damn, that's what.
Consequently, this effort at consciousness cannot rest content with the technical or scientific training of intended specialists. The new society becomes qualitatively distinct from the old in more than a partial way. Revolutionary society cannot attribute to technology the same ends attributed by the previous society. Accordingly, the training of people in the two societies must also differ. Technical and scientific training need not be inimical to humanistic education as long as science and technology in the revolutionary society are at the service of permanent liberation, of humanization. From this point of view, the training of individuals for any occupation, since all occupations occur in time and space, requires the understanding of A, culture as a superstructure which can maintain remnants of the past, alive in the substructure undergoing revolutionary transformation. Huh, hauntology, you say, huh? A. Culture as a superstructure which can maintain remnants of the past, alive in the substructure undergoing revolutionary transformation. And B. The occupation itself as an instrument for the transformation of culture. As the Cultural Revolution deepens consciousness in the creative praxis of the new society, people will begin to perceive why mythical remnants of the old society survive in the new. And they will then be able to free themselves more rapidly of these specters, which by hindering the edification of a new society have always constituted a serious problem for every revolution. Is that you, a ghost bro? Are you hindering the edification of a new society and have always constituted a serious problem for every revolution? The specters haunting us. Spooky stuff.
Spooky, scary.
Through these cultural remnants, the oppressor society continues to invade, this time invading the revolutionary society itself. This invasion is especially terrible because it's carried out not by the dominant elite reorganized as such, but by those who have participated in the revolution. As men who house the oppressor, they resist as might the latter themselves the further basic steps which the revolution must take. And as dual beings, they also accept, still due to the remnants, power which becomes bureaucratized and which violently represses them. In turn, this violently repressive bureaucratic power can be explained by what Althusser calls the reactivation of old elements in the new society, each time special circumstances permit. The reactivation of old elements. Jacob, do you remember like 2011, 2012, 2013, 2014? You remember when the kids were just like not going to go right wing? It just like demographically and like polling wise, like the Republicans just weren't cool with the kids at all, and there's no way the Republican Party was going to survive into 2020 because the kids were just too smart for that.
Yep.
Man, what a time. What a time to think that kind of shit.
Slam pigs. Oh man, one of the housewife shows. God, what?
Tell me about the housewife show while you carry out this violent revolution.
They just keep calling. This was the like argument where they're calling people a slam pig, which I'm like, it's such a funny like thing to yell at someone, because again, like someone calling like a pig fucker, very different.
Right,
Slam
right.
pig, I'm like, what is
Why
this
slam
like?
Pig in specific?
We're slamming this pig? I don't understand.
Give Barney a pet.
I become like Jerry Seinfeld trying to figure out like why this is funny to people. Fuck.
If you know what show Jacob's talking about, just based on the word slam pig, tell us
Slam
now.
Pig. But, you know, just that Real Housewives of Rhode Island.
Thus why all development is transformation, not all transformation is development. The transformation occurring in the seed, which under favorable condition germinates and sprouts, is not development. In the same way, the transformation of an animal is not development. The transformations of seeds in animals are determined by the species to which they belong, and they occur in a time which does not belong to them, for time belongs to humankind. Women and men, among the uncompleted beings, are the only ones which develop. As historical, autobiographical beings for themselves, their transformation, development, occurs in their own existential time, never outside it. Men who are submitted to the concrete conditions of oppression in which they become alienated beings for another, of the false being for himself on whom they depend, are not able to develop authentically. Got too much Luna juice in them. Deprived of their own power of decision, which is located in the oppressor, they follow the prescriptions of the latter. The oppressed only begin to develop when surmounting the contradiction in which they are caught, they become beings for themselves.
They do call each other slam pigs. That's what the Cat Lady Young meme is from. My band, the Slam Pigs, is playing the Knights of Columbus on Friday. Hell yeah. That's the right, I think, juxtaposition.
Yeah, Mask, you're telling me this stuff, and I'm like, why have I just let this be sitting on my hard drive for a while? I even like Ray Fiennes, like, I love him in the menu. I am an Odyssey nerd, like, you motherfuckers have it on record well before this. Well, like, I mean, I started the stream last year, but, like, I was rambling about Emily Wilson's Odyssey from the start.
It's true. We've been fucking nerds from the
Stalk
beginning.
my shit. I have Instagram posts about when I bought that book on release because I was hyped for that version.
True.
I have a fucking Lattimore copy right next to it on my shelf because I read multiple translations of things. Fuck Elon Musk.
Dog, I can't wait.
That's it, folks. That's the bit. That's the commentary. That's the insight.
yeah,
Fuck that guy.
His entire thing is just like, make it white. Grok, Odyssey, but white. Oh, God, I fucking hate Elon Musk. There's someone who deserves to get punched in the face every fucking day of his life. It's that weird.
Jacob, if you beat this video game, you've done more video gaming than he has.
That's true.
If we consider society as a being, it is obvious that only society which is being for itself can develop. Societies which are dual reflex invaded and dependent on the metropolitan society cannot develop because they are alienated. Their political, economic, and cultural decision-making powers located outside themselves, in the invader society. In the last analysis, the latter determines the destiny of the former. Mere transformation, for it is their transformation, not their development, that is to the interest of the metropolitan society. Are you transforming or are you developing? Are you prevailing or are you enduring? That's another thing about Ambulance, is the prevalence, are you prevailing or enduring? Is like, it's just a movie about enduring. Like, there's no heroic triumph, it's just like, yeah, I just lived through that for a day. Like, there are times at which the movie's very long and very exhausting because it's just constantly at that pace. And I think that very much just reflects the sense of Americans that they're tired.
Mm-hmm. There's always foot on the throttle.
It is essential not to confuse modernization with development. The former, although it may affect certain groups in the satellite society, is almost always induced, and it is the metropolitan society which derives the true benefits therefrom. A society which is merely modernized without developing will continue, even if it takes over some minimal delegated powers of decision to depend on the outside country. Sorry, checking the battery as well. This is the fate of any dependent society, as long as it remains dependent. In order to determine whether or not a society is developing, one must go beyond criteria based on indices of per capita income, which, expressed in statistical form, is misleading, as well as those which concentrate on the study of gross income. The basic elemental criterion is whether or not the society is a being for itself. If it is not, the other criteria indicate modernization rather than development. The principal contradiction of dual societies is the relationship of dependency between them and the metropolitan society. Once the contradiction has been superseded, the transformation hereto effected through aid, which has primarily benefited the metropolitan society, becomes true development, which benefits the being for itself. For the above reasons, the purely reformist solutions attempted by these societies, even though some of the reforms may frighten and even panic the more reactionary members of the elite groups, do not resolve their external and internal contradictions. Almost always, the metropolitan society induces these reformist solutions in response to the demands of the historical process, as a new way of preserving its hegemony. It is as if the metropolitan society were saying, let us carry out reforms before the people carry out a revolution. And in order to achieve this goal, the metropolitan society has no options other than conquest, manipulation, economic and cultural, and sometimes military invasion of the dependent society, an invasion in which the elite leaders of the dominated society to a large extent act as mere brokers for the leaders of the metropolitan society. I mentioned the newest episode of the True Anon podcast titled Sugar, which is about the ongoing strike in Crockett, California, solidarity with the workers out there at C&H Sugar Factory striking the good strike. But the area has a history of labor actions and labor protests and labor movements like that. One of the older labor organizers was talking about, in regards to previous labor actions, one of the things they hated the most was when when like a politician would come to like a symbolic kind of like olive branch victory sort of thing with the people, and how the press would run with that story. So then the way the news media would project it is like, cool, the thing's solved. And then as soon as that story ran and the public was sated, the next day, cops beating the shit out of you. Like cops pummeling your ass back out, down, because like now the eyes are off the event.
I was trying to remember the name of that book. It's like Negroes with Guns.
Yes, the one you've been listening to?
Yeah, it was a good one. Essentially the same thing where it's just like every day it was like, man, we keep getting beaten up by all these white
I mean,
folks.
it's the same thing too. Like ICE is still out there. Like remember, like they took in like news focus off of LA and Minneapolis.
They were just around the corner from us recently,
Right.
as I have come to find out.
There are detention centers still going up. But it's scary, the DSA is ascending in power. Oh no. Oh no.
Oh no, you wouldn't want, so you wouldn't want healthcare, would you? or like your city to function as normal, would you? That'd be fucking liberal of you. What are you, dumb?
To close this tentative analysis of the theory of anti-dialogical action, I wish to reaffirm that revolutionary leaders must not use the same anti-dialogical procedures used by the oppressors. On the contrary, revolutionary leaders must follow the path of dialogue and of communication. Before proceeding to analyze the theory of dialogical action, it is essential to discuss briefly how the revolutionary leadership group is formed, and some of the historical and sociological consequences for the revolutionary process. Usually this leadership group is made up of men and women who in one way or another have belonged to the social strata of the dominators. At a certain point in their existential experience, under certain historical conditions, these leaders renounce the class to which they belong and join the oppressed, in an act of true solidarity, or so one would hope. Whether or not this adherence results from the scientific analysis of reality, it represents, when authentic, an act of love and true commitment. I love you, Agent Cooper. I love you, Sheriff Truman.
I love you, Sheriff Truman.
Yeah, it's Albert's path is a... Damn it, I forgot the line. Oh no, I've forgotten the face of my father.
Oh no, you fucker.
The foundation of this method is love. Joining the oppressed requires going to them and communicating with them. The people must find themselves in the emerging leaders, and the latter must find themselves in the people. The leaders who have emerged necessarily reflect the contradiction of the dominant elites communicated to them by the oppressed, who may not yet, however, clearly perceive their own state of oppression or critically recognize their relationship of antagonism to the oppressors. They may still be in the position previously termed adhesion to the oppressor. On the other hand, it's possible that due to certain objective historical conditions, they have already reached a relatively clear perception of the state of oppression. In the first case, the adhesion, or partial adhesion, of the people to the oppressor makes it impossible for them, to repeat Fanon's point, to locate him outside themselves. In the second case, they can locate the oppressor and can thus critically recognize their relationship of antagonism to him. In the first case, the oppressor is housed within the people, and the resulting ambiguity makes them fearful of freedom. They resort, stimulated by the oppressor, to magical explanations, or a false view of God, to whom they fatalistically transfer the responsibility for their oppressed state. It is extremely unlikely that their self-mistrustful, downtrodden, hopeless people will seek their own liberation, an act of rebellion which they may view as the disobedient violation of the will of God, as an unwarranted confrontation with destiny. This is what I really liked about Zeal and Ardor, Jacob, is the use of black metal, both as like, yes, the satanic anti-Christian aspects of black metal,
yeah.
but then actually like thought out in sociological terms as like critiques of like capitalism and historically like slavery.
Mm-hmm.
Fun band, folks. Fun band.
Really fun band. That's like doing something with the material.
Oh yeah, John. Yeah, I mean, speaking of cane sugar, again, like Crockett, California. Recall what did Fiere's educational program do? It was for sugarcane harvesters, field workers. He was educating them. Nice, a ghost, bro. Nice. Hence the oft-emphasized necessity of posing as problems the myths fed to the people by the oppressors. In the second case, when the people have reached a relatively clear picture of oppression which leads them to localize the oppressor outside themselves, they take up the struggle to surmount the contradiction in which they are caught. At this moment, they overcome the distance between class necessity and class consciousness. In the first case, the revolutionary leaders unfortunately and involuntarily becomes the contradiction of the people. In the second case, the emerging leaders receive from the people sympathetic and almost instantaneous support, which tends to increase during the process of revolutionary action. The leaders go to the people in a spontaneously dialogical manner. There's an almost immediate empathy between the people and the revolutionary leaders. Their mutual commitment is almost instantly sealed. In fellowship, they consider themselves co-equal contradictions of the dominant elites. From this point on, the established practice of dialogue between people and leaders is nearly unshakable. That dialogue will continue when power is reached, and the people will know that they have come to power. This sharing in no way diminishes the spirit of struggle, courage, capacity for love, or daring required of the revolutionary leaders. Fidel Castro and his comrades, whom many at the time termed irresponsible adventurers, an eminently dialogical leadership group, identified with the people who endured the brutal violence of the Batista dictatorship. This adherence was not easy. It required bravery on the part of the leaders to love the people sufficiently to be willing to sacrifice themselves for them. It required courageous witness by the leaders to recommence after each disaster, moved by undying hope in a future victory, which, because forged together with the people, would belong not to the leaders alone, but to the leaders and the people, or to the people, including the leaders. Yeah, this is something to think about with Cuba for those who haven't considered just, they've endured U.S. sanctions and, blockades and limitations placed upon them.
Decades.
Yeah, for so long. Like, that they're still here is a testament to the strength of the system. It's not like oh no, the last bastion of communism that we need to crush to end the Cold War.
Freedom farter.
It doesn't matter how many communists you take shots at, your dad's never gonna kiss you.
But daddy, I love you.
Your message failed to send mask? Damn, I don't see it. Like, I didn't even get like a block or deny notification if there was like bad language or whatever in it. You said the dirty words, oh. Fidel gradually polarized the adherents of the Cuban people, who due to their historical experience had already begun to break their adhesion to the oppressor. This drawing away from the oppressor led the people to objectify him, and to see themselves as his contradiction. So it was that Fidel never entered into contradiction with the people. The occasional dissertations or betrayals registered by the Guevara in his Relato de la Guerra Revolucionaria, in which he also refers to the many who adhered, were to be expected. Thus, due to certain historical conditions, the movement by the revolutionary leaders to the people is either horizontal, so that the leaders and people form one body in contradiction to the oppressor, or it's triangular, with the revolutionary leaders occupying the vertex of the triangle in contradiction to the oppressors and to the oppressed as well. As we've seen, the latter situation is forced on the leaders when the people have not yet achieved a critical perception of oppressive reality. Has America yet achieved a critical perception of its own oppressive reality? I think this is like, I mean, that's rhetorical, not seeking a definite answer on that. But again, to get back to Michael Bay's Ambulance, I think this dissonance is why I find it so Biden-esque as well, because It is full-on display that the surveillance state has returned home. Like, the movie opens with, like, the most righteous military veteran getting denied health care as, like, a matter of accepted fact. Like, there's such an accepted baseline of everything sucking, and yet it's so glorious to participate in the narrative this permits you to live out, you know?
Mm-hmm. It's always cool, bro.
And I think a lot of Americans are still in that hump. That's what the whole striver mentality, you know, Steinbeck quote about temporarily embarrassed millionaires is. Like, I can slay the dragon.
Talk, I'm built different.
No, I have a particular kind of app no one's thought of before, and I'm gonna slay the dragon.
Oh, you didn't mention an app before.
Yeah, it's an app. It does things on your phone.
On your phone?
Yeah,
I can download
going.
it on my phone.
We're gonna make 10 million. We're gonna make 10 million sales. We're gonna do some NFTs. We're gonna do some cocaine. We're gonna slay the dragon. American success. There's such a just like dead libidinal impulse in the cinema right now too, and I think it's because there's too much like oppressor signaling as far as like, don't you want to be an entrepreneur? Don't you want to be a superhero? Don't you want to be on the clock all the time as a participant in this economy, metaphorical or literal?
Don't you want to be a part of that grind set?
Isn't the Nike movie cool? Isn't the Apple movie cool?
Don't you love it?
Hey, look, it's a He-Man movie. You remember He-Man, right? Isn't He-Man good? The big ol' titties in a dragon app.
Dude, fuck yeah. Dragon with tickle bitties.
I mean, do you know how much commissioned big old titties in a dragon art there would be if people had like a functional like UBI to like pay their artist friends to do work?
Like I was gonna say, I think my younger cousin actually does that.
Yeah.
Like she gets a lot.
I mean, I've worked in animation. I know animators. Hey, make those commissions. You know, fuck.
Listen, man. Some people can't draw furry titties, you know. It's a gift.
Do not AI that shit. You pay real perverts to make it with real passion.
Yes, dude. Leave the perversion to the professionals.
Damn, there's a real good line in Crying of Lot 49 I didn't talk about that's really on that, but I did screen cap it, so it'll be pretty easy to pull up.
Fuck off, quit shooting me.
As part of our summer scramble, I didn't really say much today, but the general gist of it is we've been shotgunning short books under 200 pages while playing video games here as our usual Technopoverty setup. I bring up The Crying of Lot 49 because that was the previous book we read, Thomas Pynchon's short little read of conspiracy paranoia. Not going to go through all of Lot 49, I just want to read a little excerpt on pornography. At some point, the main character, she's given a bunch of woodcuts, just illustrations from someone who's doing woodcuts, and it's described as such. The illustrations were woodcuts, executed with that, The illustrations were woodcuts, executed with that crude haste to see the finished product that marks an amateur. True pornography is given to us by vastly patient professionals. Vastly patient professionals, true perverts and connoisseurs.
Hell yeah. Alright, let's see what we got here.
The human friction of it all.
Assassinates. Ah, there he is. Maybe.
I'll squeeze this in before we go to break. I might read a few more pages, but in this, continuing on the summer scramble, we're probably going to play. I want to play Pipistrello or Mina the Hollower. I don't know. It's a coin flip, gang. Either way, we're going to be reading Gretchen Felker-Martin's Black Flame next, and after that, we're going to be reading Ursula K. Le Guin's The Lathe of Heaven. Stick around as I play Pipistrello or Mina the Hollower. I may do both or juggle them, who knows. I think, Jacob, next week you can be out of town, right?
Not out of town. I think we have some plans next Thursday, so we won't be able to attend.
Okay, that's fine. Just giving a heads up. So next week we might break into some solo sessions and get irregular with the scheduling again. We'll do the Monday, Thursday as usual, but I might slip in a Friday or Tuesday. Keep an eye on the Discord or the Patreon or the Blue Sky as always.
Where the fuck am I supposed to go?
3-2. I thought that sentence was going very differently for a moment when I first started reading it. Almost never, however, does a revolutionary leadership group perceive that it constitutes a contradiction to the people. Indeed, this perception is painful, and the resistance may serve as a defense mechanism. After all, it's not easy for leaders who have emerged through adherence to the oppressed to recognize themselves as being in contradiction with those to whom they adhered. It is important to recognize this reluctance through analyzing certain forms of behavior on the part of revolutionary leaders who involuntarily become a contradiction, although not antagonists, of the people. In order to carry out the revolution, revolutionary leaders undoubtedly require the adherence of the people. When leaders who constitute a contradiction to the people seek this adherence and find rather a certain aloofness and mistrust, they often regard this reaction as indicating an inherent defect on the part of the people. They interpret a certain historical moment of the people's consciousness as evidence of their intrinsic deficiency. Since the leaders need the adherence of the people so that the revolution can be achieved, but at the same time mistrust the mistrustful people, they are tempted to utilize the same procedures used by the dominant elites to oppress. Rationalizing their lack of confidence in the people, the leaders say that it's impossible to dialogue with the people before taking power, thus opting for the anti-dialogical theory of action. Thenceforward, just like the dominant elites, they try to conquer the people. They become messianic. They use manipulation and carry out cultural invasion. By advancing along these paths, the paths of oppression, they will not achieve revolution, or if they do, it will not be authentic revolution. The role of revolutionary leadership, under any circumstances, but especially so in those described, is to consider seriously, even as they act, the reasons for any attitude of mistrust on the part of the people, and to seek out true avenues of communion with them. Ways of helping the people to help themselves critically perceive the reality which oppresses them. The dominated consciousness is dual, ambiguous, full of fear and mistrust. In his diary about the struggle in Bolivia, Guevara refers several times to the lack of peasant participation. The peasant mobilization does not exist, except for informative duties which may annoy us somewhat. They are neither very rapid nor very efficient. They can be neutralized. Complete lack of incorporation of the peasants, although they are losing their fear of us and we are succeeding in winning their admiration. It is a slow and patient task. The internalization of the oppressor by the dominated consciousness of the peasants explains their fear and their inefficiency. The behavior and reactions of the oppressed, which lead the oppressor to practice cultural invasion, should evoke from the revolutionary a different theory of action. What distinguishes revolutionary leaders from the dominant elite is not only their objectives, but their procedures. If they act in the same way, the objectives become identical. It is as self-contradictory for the dominant elites to pose human world relations as problems to the people as it is for the revolutionary leaders not to do so. Let us now analyze the theory of dialogical cultural action and attempt to apprehend its constituent elements. Cool. All right, so we've hit the last part where, as you just described, we're moving now from talking about anti-dialogue to dialogue. This is the ending sort of prescription space, although it's not going to be like that meme I oh so hate where the dude's acting faux depressed at the end of reading a leftist theory book because there's no magic bullet solution coming. I'm really frustrated with that sentiment because, I mean, if you're reading that book expecting to like down 200 pages and then suddenly magic bullet, all of your macro society anxieties are alleviated and fixed, you're looking in the wrong place to address that. You address that by finding community and going out and like, I don't know, participate in your local political organization, see what your DSA is up to, see what like weirdo artists in your area are up to, get a hobby.
Find things you like. Go out and engage with the communities in the world. Feel a lot less scary.
Like, you're not there to bank that leftist theory book and then, like, just know things and be a knower of things. That's still being stuck in the oppressor mindset, as talked about by Freire. Share that stuff with people. Can you not jump on that? Oh, okay.
Oh god, a helicopter. Helicopter trying to murder me.
I'm gonna queue up the bumper screen, and when Jacob either succeeds, fails, blows everything up, who knows? Who knows?
One of the two.
Something's gonna happen here, and then I'm gonna hit the break time screen, and we're gonna have us a fun old break, and then we'll come back and read the last of what Freire has to say.
I don't fucking know. I think I'm doing this right.
I just came in Guy Fieri say that.
Have you seen that guy online who's shown videos like Guy Fieri never swallows? Like he always takes a bite of food, or is just like never actually eating the food on all of his shows. It's like there's no way.
Wait, what if he's a robot?
Yeah, but like every time you watch every episode, it always cuts away. It always cuts. He's never eating anything. It's like, what the fuck?
Oh, cool, nice. I will say, is this the end?
I mean, I just killed the big baddie boy. I really feel like this game's not going to be too complicated. Like we've had like 9 levels total, I think, ish.
Remember me, Chris?
Oh shit! What?
Yes, I know your name.
I haven't rescued my brother yet.
Hello, Christopher. You see, I've resumed my original profession.
What the fuck?
You never questioned where all that juicy information was coming
Oh.
from. That's what I love about the Americans. One finger up the nose and the other on the remote control. You were also busy entertaining yourselves to death, while our great nation was busy. Busy liberating Europe from the same fate. Our horizon grew, while yours has faded out.
Whoa, dog.
All right, let's go on break.
Let's do it.
Yeah, we'll resume this shocking revelation when we return to Techno-Poverty. What up, Lady Gagas?
Lady Gagas!
I do want to say just one last thing before we go here is like the context this was made in, post 9/11 war on terror. Like this is recontextualizing just like the freedom fighter, insurgent aesthetic to like an acceptable American like white male like narrative aesthetic thing. But at the time that this was becoming the popular aesthetic of what our boys overseas was doing, I mean,
you gotta create propaganda. You gotta get those kids to want to fight in a war.
Well, the reality of what was going on is we were starting to automate things in a bigger way, like drone warfare and stuff.
Nice.
I know like Call of Duty games kind of with the Modern Warfare ones allude towards that kind of warfare and do have you participate in like drone strikes and stuff like that. But is there any military game out there that's extremely like contemporary, like chair force drone operator, just no valor in it, just the monotony of like automated warfare?
There's gotta be something.
Yeah, chat, if you know anything like that, let us know while we're on break. I'm gonna go ahead and hit that bumper screen now. We're gonna look at that cute Barney reel, and we'll be back with the end of Pedagogy of the Oppressed in a few. See you then. Welcome back. And you know what, Lady Gaga's Apprentice? I'm sure you're right. There's going to be a Russia-Ukraine game at some point, and it's just drones.
Oh, we did find that a couple chill video games. What was that one where you play like Hamas or something?
Oh yeah, that was more of general just like getting to blow up IDF soldiers thing. But yeah, it seemed pretty cool.
There was some interesting art. Yeah?
Interesting, right?
Interesting art.
I don't wish any further bloodshed in this matter.
I bet you don't.
We have one prince. You must have.
Oh, he's like monologuing as you're approaching through the pipes. That's so like action movie, like standard. It's great.
So cliches. Let us begin.
Yeah, give me your tragic story, bro.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk about dialogical methods. Cooperation. In the theory of anti-dialogical action, conquest, as its primary characteristic, involves a subject who conquers another person and transforms her or him into a thing. In the dialogical theory of action, subjects meet in cooperation in order to transform the world. The anti-dialogical dominating I transforms the dominated, conquered thou into a mere it. The dialogical I, however, knows that it is precisely the thou, not I, which has called forth his or her own existence. He also knows that the thou, which calls forth his own existence, in turn constitutes an I, which has in his I its thou. The I and the thou thus become, in the dialectic of this relationships, two thous which become two I's. The dialogical theory of action does not involve a subject who dominates by virtue of conquest and a dominated object. Instead, there are subjects who meet to name the world in order to transform it. If at a certain historical moment the oppressed, for the reasons previously described, are unable to fulfill their vocation as subjects, the posting of their very oppression as a problem, which always involves some form of action, will help them achieve this vocation. This is bringing a bit of Wittgenstein to mind, although I haven't read Wittgenstein in a while, and I'm not sure if I still dig or gel with what I thought about Tractus Philosophicus Tractotum, I think it's called. Basically, I remember taking away from that text that philosophy isn't a static thing, but it's a method of inquiry and application to the world. Like, there's not like a bounded off object called philosophy that you can know the totality of. It's a tool to constantly like investigate and question with.
I was gonna say it's like tarot cards.
Yeah.
You know, you're like, it's the same card.
Like the tarot's not magic itself, but like the way it operates on evoking archetypes, stereotypes, it's there to generate a conversation. Like
get you thinking, become introspective on yourself.
It depends on how good a dialogue you're having with the person at the tarot table. I think it's fun and novel. I also get the woo-woo like stereotype punching down people do on it.
Yeah. I mean, you see both sides of it. That's fine.
I do think too there needs to be like some like actual like conversation about these things. I just think about like the crystal mommy right wing kind of like post-Trump woo-woo QAnon America and how off guard like so many liberals were caught by that because they thought like hippies were inherently like lefties or something like that.
Yeah.
Bigger, that's a bigger thing, and also something, Hunter S. Thompson has an essay called The Hyde-Asbury's, like a drug-addled wasteland or something like that. But it's a piece Hunter S. Thompson wrote just talking about how like a lot of hippies were just upper-class whites doing drugs and like wanting to be chill, and like they get romanticized in history for doing things that were actually done by working-class people of color.
Man, that reminds me
As far as like civil rights and the Cultural Revolution goes.
It makes me think, remember when January 6th was happening and we found out that like people thought there was like a bunch of like low rednecks and stuff like that, but it turned out to be like
right, because they were the ones who could take their time off and had the income to like buy a ticket to go.
Just like so
the middle class barons, the feudal mid barons of like the regional governors.
The my daddy owns a car sales. My dad's a car salesman.
The regional governors now have direct control over the territories. Fear will keep the galaxy in line.
Yes.
The above does not mean that in the dialogical task there's no role for revolutionary leadership. It means merely that the leaders, in spite of their important, fundamental, and indispensable role, do not own the people and have no right to steer the people blindly towards their salvation. Such a salvation would be a mere gift from the leaders to the people, a breaking of the dialogical bond between them, and a reducing of the people from co-authors of liberating action into objects of this action. Oh, Dostoevsky's demons, eh?
Do not make me.
The assistant to the regional manager.
Try to reason with you. Do not.
See, I was quoting Tarkin earlier, and I just want to point out the reference because, like, it's Star Wars, and, like, I will shit on... Jacob, do you remember, can you believe that a Star Wars movie came out this year, and, like, nobody's fucking talked about it?
No one cares about it.
Like, The Mandalorian and Grogu just kind of happened? That's amazing.
Like, I remember when it was big when that show happened.
Yeah.
And now, people don't care. It's kind of sick.
I'm trying, I point out to Star Wars because, like, I still engage with Star Wars stuff. Like, I like Andor. I will quote from A New Hope. Like, I just think there's, like, a certain, like, in dialogue with, like, the ethos of the thing conversation you can be having with it, or you can be doing the aestheticizing thing, as Benjamin talks about, where it's just, like, yes, haha, look at my shelf.
Where are your precious?
If anything, I'm frustrated when, like, the big dumb populist things don't get the big dumb populist things in my brain churning, you know? Like, I want to be enraptured in escapism.
Sure.
I think there's something very interesting going on with Disney movies in the contemporary because, like, again, I will watch Project Hail Mary and The Sheep Detectives and be all teary-eyed and blubbery and, like, love and hope and peace and a better future is possible. These big budget products of evil have tickled my heartstrings. And then I just go over to the Disney side and it seems so ideologically insecure and just stagnant. Yeah, Lady Gaga's Apprentice, I think you're tapping into something there where Disney realizes young people don't care about Star Wars. I think it's kind of like Disney realizes young people don't care about blank. Or better put, Disney realizes young people aren't willing to spend money on their comfort, like, food offerings.
Yeah.
Or they could get a better sense of, like, reliable returns out of servicing the, like, 35 to 55-year-old crowd who is 18 during, like, previous... When the live-action stuff now wasn't live-action.
I know there is not in your heart. Lay down your weapon. And we will
Cooperation is a characteristic of dialogical action, which occurs only among subjects who may, however, have diverse levels of functions and thus of responsibility, can only be achieved through communication. Dialogue, as essential communication, must underlie any cooperation. In the theory of dialogical action, there is no place for conquering the people on behalf of the revolutionary cause, but only for gaining their adherence. Dialogue does not impose, does not manipulate, does not domesticate, does not sloganize. This does not mean, however, that the theory of dialogical action leads nowhere, nor does it mean that the dialogical human does not have a clear idea of what she wants, or of the objectives to which she is committed. The commitment of the revolutionary leaders to the oppressed is at the same time a commitment to freedom. And because of that commitment, the leaders cannot attempt to conquer the oppressed, but must achieve their adherence to liberation. Conquered adherence is not adherence, it is adhesion of the vanquished to the conqueror, who prescribes the options open to the former. Authentic adherence is the free coincidence of choices. It cannot occur apart from communication among people mediated by reality. Thus, cooperation leads dialogical subjects to focus their attention on the reality which mediates them and which, posed as a problem, challenges them. The response to that challenge is the action of dialogical subjects upon reality in order to transform it. Let me reemphasize that posing reality as a problem does not mean sloganizing. It means critical analysis of a problematic reality. As opposed to the mythicizing practices of the dominant elites, dialogical theory requires that the world be unveiled. No one can, however, unveil the world for another. Although one subject may initiate the unveiling on behalf of others, the others must also become subjects of this act. The adherence of the people is made possible by this unveiling of the world and of themselves, an authentic praxis. This adherence coincides with the trust that the people began placing in themselves and in the revolutionary leaders, as the former perceived the dedication and the authenticity of the latter. The trust of the people in the leaders reflects the confidence of the leaders in the people. The trust of the people in the leaders reflects the confidence of the leaders in the people. This confidence should not, however, be naive. The leaders must believe in the potentialities of the people, whom they cannot treat as mere objects of their own action. They must believe that the people are capable of participating in the pursuit of liberation, but they must always mistrust the ambiguity of oppressed people, mistrust the oppressor housed in the latter. Accordingly, when Guevara exhorts the revolutionary to be always mistrustful, he's not disregarding the fundamental condition of the theory of dialogical action. He's merely being a realist. Although trust is basic to dialogue, it's not a priori condition of the latter. It results from the encounter in which persons are co-subjects in denouncing the world as part of the world's transformation. But as long as the oppressor within the oppressed is stronger than they themselves are, their natural fear of freedom may lead them to denounce the revolutionary leaders instead. The leaders cannot be credulous, but must be alert for these possibilities. Guevara's episodes confirm these risks. Not only dissertations, but even betrayal of the cause. At times in this document, while recognizing the necessity of punishing the deserter in order to preserve the cohesion and the discipline of the group, Guevara also recognizes certain factors which explain the desertion. One of them, perhaps the most important, is the deserter's ambiguity. Another portion of Guevara's document, which refers to his presence, not only as a guerrilla but as a medical doctor in a peasant community in the Sierra Maestra and relates to the discussion of cooperation, is quite striking.
You'll live to regret your actions, so he's not gonna kill you?
So he was also like, what is this little like?
As a result of daily contact with these people and their problems, we became firmly convinced of the need for a complete change in the life of our people. The idea of an agrarian reform became crystal clear. Communion with the people ceased to be a mere theory, to become an integral part of ourselves. Guerrillas and peasants began to merge into a solid mass. No one can say exactly when, in this long process, the ideas became reality and we became a part of the peasantry. As far as I'm concerned, the contact with the patients in the Sierra turned the spontaneous and somewhat lyrical decision into a more serene force, one of an entirely different value. Those poor, suffering, loyal inhabitants of the Sierra cannot even imagine what a great contribution they made to the forging of our revolutionary ideology. Note Guevara's emphasis on communion with the people was decisive for a transformation of a spontaneous and somewhat lyrical decision into a more serene force, one of an entirely different value. It was then, in dialogue with the peasants, that Guevara's revolutionary praxis became definitive. What Guevara did not say, perhaps due to humility, is that it was his own humility and capacity to love that made it possible to be in communion with the people. And this indisputably dialogical communion became cooperation. Note that Guevara, who did not climb the Sierra Maestra with Fidel and his comrades as a frustrated youth in search of adventure, recognizes that his communion with the people ceased to be a mere theory for it to become an integral part of himself. He stresses how from the moment that communion, the peasants became forgers of his guerrilla's revolutionary ideology. Even Guevara's unmistakable style of narrating his and his comrades' experiences, of describing his contacts with the poor, loyal peasants in an almost evangelical language, reveals this remarkable man's deep capacity for love and communication. Thence emerges the force of his ardent testimony to the work of another loving man, Camilo Torres, the guerrilla priest. Without the communion which engenders true cooperation, the Cuban people would have been mere sub-objects of the revolutionary activity of the men of the Sierra Maestra, and as objects, their adherence would have been impossible. At the most, there might have been adhesion, but that is a component of domination, not revolution. In dialogical theory, at no stage can revolutionary action forego communion with the people. Communion, in turn, elicits cooperation, which brings leaders and people to the fusion described by Guevara. This fusion can exist only if revolutionary action is really human, empathetic, loving, communicative, and humble, in order to be liberating. The revolution loves and creates life, and in order to create life, it may be obliged to prevent some men from circumscribing life. In addition to the life-death cycle basic to nature, there is almost an unnatural living death, life which is denied its fullness. It should not be necessary here to cite statistics to show how many Brazilians, and Latin Americans in general, are living corpses, shadows of human beings, hopeless men, women, and children, victimized by an endless, invisible war, in which the remnants of life are devoured by tuberculosis, schistosomiasis, infant diarrhea, and by the myriad of diseases of poverty, most of which, in the terminology of the oppressors, are called tropical diseases. Father Chenu makes the following comments regarding possible reactions to situations as extreme as the above. Many, both among the priests attending the council and the informed laymen, fear that in facing the needs and suffering of the world, we may simply adopt an emotional protest in favor of palliating the manifestations and symptoms of poverty and injustice without going on to analyze the causes of the latter, to denounce the regime which encompasses the injustice and engenders this poverty. Wow. What? You have to not just grieve about the poverty, but get to the root of what's causing it?
But what about the symptoms?
You can just shoot the symptoms with a gun, right?
Yeah, I am Kyle. There's Kyle.
All right, unity for liberation. Whereas the anti-dialogical theory of action, the dominators are compelled by necessity to divide the oppressed, the more easily to preserve the state of oppression. In the dialogical theory, the leaders must dedicate themselves to an untiring effort for unity among the oppressed, and unity of the leaders with the oppressed, in order to achieve liberation. The difficulty is that this category of dialogical action, like the others, cannot occur apart from the praxis. The praxis of oppression is easy, or at least not difficult, for the dominant elite, but it is not easy for the revolutionary leaders to carry out a liberating praxis. The former group can rely on using the instruments of power. The latter group has this power directed against it. The former group can organize itself freely, and though it may undergo fortuitous and momentary divisions, it unites rapidly in the face of any threat to its fundamental interest. The latter group cannot exist without the people, and this very condition constitutes the first obstacle to its efforts at organization. It would indeed be inconsistent of the dominant elite to allow the revolutionary leaders to organize. The internal unity of the dominant elite, which reinforces and organizes its power, requires that the people be divided. The unity of the revolutionary leaders only exists in the unity of the people among themselves and in turn with them. The unity of the elite derives from its antagonism with the people. The unity of the revolutionary leadership group grows out of communion with the united people. The concrete situation of oppression, which dualizes the I of the oppressed, thereby making the oppressed person ambiguous, emotionally unstable, and fearful of freedom, facilitates the divisive action of the dominator by hindering the unifying action indispensable to liberation. Further domination is itself objectively divisive. It maintains the oppressed I in a position of adhesion to a reality which seems all-powerful and overwhelming, and then alienates by presenting mysterious forces to explain this power. Part of the oppressed I is located in the reality to which it adheres. Part of it's located outside the self, in the mysterious forces which are regarded as responsible for a reality about which nothing can be done. The individual is divided between an identical past and present, and a future without hope. He or she is a person who does not perceive himself or herself as becoming, hence cannot have a future to be built in unity with others. But as he or she breaks this adhesion and objectifies the reality from which he or she starts to emerge, the person begins to integrate as a subject, an I, confronting an object, reality. At this moment, sundering the false unity of the divided self, one becomes a true individual. And somehow we're back at Descartes. Been name dropping him since the first unsaved stream of Mega Man X and Isaac Asimov, where we talked a lot about cogito ergo sum. I think, therefore I am. Cartesian philosophy, the recognition of self. 3-2 remembers, thumbs up from the beginning. Was quite the time. I regret forgetting what I said about payday loans in that stream, although clearly I remember what I said about payday loans. To divide the oppressed, an ideology of oppression is indispensable. In contrast, achieving their unity requires a form of cultural action through which they come to know the why and how of their adhesion to reality. It requires ideologizing. Hence, the effort to unify the oppressed does not call for mere ideological sloganizing. The latter, by distorting the authentic relation between the subject and objective reality, also separates the cognitive, the affective, and the active aspects of the total indivisible personality. The object of dialogical libertarian action is not to dislodge the oppressed from a mythological reality in order to bind them to another reality. On the contrary, the object of a dialogical action is to make it possible for the oppressed, by perceiving their adhesion, to opt to transform an unjust reality. Since the unity of the oppressed involves solidarity among them, regardless of their exact status, the unity unquestionably requires class consciousness. However, the submersion in reality which characterizes the peasants of Latin America means that consciousness of being an oppressed class must be preceded, or at least accompanied, by achieving consciousness of being oppressed individuals. Proposing as a problem to a European peasant the fact that he or she is a person might strike them as strange. This is not true of Latin American peasants, whose world usually ends at the boundaries of the latifundium, whose gestures to some extent simulate those of animals and the trees, and who often consider themselves equal to the latter. I'm trying to remember, up until like the invention of like automobiles and like industrial travel, like on average didn't a person only like move 1 square mile away from home or something like that? I may be hyperbolizing a bit, but you know what I'm talking about, right? How historically people didn't really move more than a few miles from wherever they were born for the longest time.
Yeah.
Struggle ends here.
And I mean, I've seen the shift from when we had just, you know, photographs and magazines to internet information. I like imagine just like having even less access to info, knowledge, or just an understanding of like what could be out there.
Yeah. The thing that always got me is just thinking of being a pizza man before there was GPS.
Yeah.
Like, you actually had to like fucking go. You had to know the town. Like, you had to know where all the places were, or find out real fucking quick.
Or you might.
Oh, I'm not.
Back in the day.
Well, there we go. But yeah, back in the day, just being a pizza man and actually having to know the town and have a map and know how to use that map.
Beating Metroid on the NES before you can go on the internet, and you didn't have a Nintendo Power Map or anything because you got the cartridge at a pawn shop. Men who are bound to nature and to the oppressor in this way must come to discern themselves as persons prevented from being. And discovering themselves means, in the first instance of discovering themselves, as Pedro, as Antonio, as Josefa. This discovery implies a different perception of the meaning of designations. The words world, men, culture, tree, work, animal reassume their true significance. The peasants now see themselves as transformers of reality, previously a mysterious entity, through their creative labor. They discover that, as people, they can no longer continue to be things possessed by others. They can move from consciousness of themselves as oppressed individuals to consciousness of an oppressed class. This is something else Lux and I were talking about in terms of like film criticism and people having certain assumptions about what goes into making a movie. Is like, Jacob, I want everybody to have welfare so that they can have the free time and the free income to do their own little arts projects and collaborative projects with their friends and stuff, so they can just get a better, more haptic understanding of like what goes into making a thing. I don't even mean specifically filmmaking, just like producing a collaborative piece of art with a crew of friends, and just the way like communication and translation of idea from like plan to praxis, how that plays out, and like realizing what you can construct and how you can more effectively like work as a constructing unit. And just like, I think
we should just use Grok.
No. What the fuck is wrong with you?
Yeah, why would we want to do human art? We could just fucking tell a computer to do a thing.
Do things scary.
Don't you want to be like the fucking smartest boy in the world, Elon Musk, and figure it out? Don't you? Completely joking.
Racially correct Odyssey.
Racially correct Odyssey.
Like, he would just write an Iron Dream, you know?
And just say Hail Hitler. I forget.
And then a girl who looked like Grimes walked in, and then the next 50 pages he just won't shut the fuck up about her. I'm sorry, dude.
It's just like, I was so impressive to her. She thought I was so
She thought I was
impressive.
the coolest boy. Any attempt to unify the peasants based on activist methods which rely on slogans and do not deal with these fundamental aspects produces a mere juxtaposition of individuals, giving a purely mechanistic character to their action. The unity of the oppressed occurs at the human level, not the level of things. It occurs in a reality which is only authentically comprehended in the dialectic between sub and superstructure. In order for the oppressed to unite, they must first cut the umbilical cord of magic and myth which binds them to the world of oppression. The unity which links them to each other must be of different nature. To achieve this indispensable unity, the revolutionary process must be, from the beginning, cultural action. The methods used to achieve the unity of the oppressed will depend on the latter's historical and existential experience within the social structure. Peasants live in a closed reality, with a single compact center of oppressive decision. The urban oppressed live in an expanding context, in which the oppressive command center is plural and complex. Peasants are under the control of a dominant figure who incarnates the oppressive system. In urban areas, the oppressed are subjected to an oppressive impersonality. In both cases, the oppressive power is to a certain extent invisible. In the rural zone, because of its proximity to the oppressed, in the cities, because of its dispersion. Forms of cultural action in such different situations as these have nonetheless the same objective, to clarify to the oppressed the objective situation which binds them to the oppressors, visible or not. Only forms of action which avoid mere speech-making and ineffective blah on the one hand, and mechanistic activism on the other hand, can also oppose the divisive action of the dominant elites and move towards the unity of the oppressed.
Fuck yeah, we did it, boys. We blew that guy up.
You chasing that general? Alright, next section, organization. In the theory of anti-dialogical action, manipulation is indispensable to the conquest and domination. In the dialogical theory of action, the organization of the people presents the antagonistic opposite of this manipulation. Organization's not only directly linked to unity, but is a natural development of that unity. Accordingly, the leader's pursuit of unity is necessarily also an attempt to organize the people, requiring witness to the fact that the struggle for liberation is a common task. This constant, humble, and courageous witness emerging from the cooperation in a shared effort, the liberation of women and men, avoids the danger of anti-dialogical control. The form of witness may vary, depending on the historical conditions of any society. Witness itself, however, is an indispensable element of revolutionary action. I really also just want to say, in general, like, the applicability of this stuff at its various levels, I've talked about ways this could be taken as, like, in a corrupt way, a self-help book, or, like, if you're a fucked up corporation that really wants to, like, get its hooks in people, like, it can be a brand loyalty, like, deep dive. But just as like a document on education, this has got to be some of my favorite, I'm going to call it American philosophy, because I did want to get to this point, which is South America, Latin America, Central America, Mexico, Canada, they're Americans too. This may be extremely anecdotal and personal, but I do find something interesting to the way the way Canadians don't seem to bring up that point as often as like Latin American folks from all walks of below the United States do. I think it's a good endearing thing and worth recognizing that yes, they're correct. These, like, North and South America are the American continents. Like, the United States does not have a domination on what America is.
Yeah, we are not the
The
only.
United States, even within its own boundaries, wants to deny how heavily French and Mexican it is. Like, we got the weird self-hating white people dominating just our cultural document. I don't know, do Canadians ever really make that argument in any kind of way or sense, or even as a joke or as a conversational piece? I've only ever been I've only ever lived along the southern border.
Yeah.
Maybe it is a point that is made. I would be curious to hear from folks with any experience on that.
It's not one I have heard.
that is something I'm interested to get to talking about too, because like the frontier myth wasn't like invented by white people either. Like conquistadors came here and wanted to have like brutal myths of like, I mean, the Fountain of Youth, El Dorado, like this continent has been a projection of European anxieties up and down. Not just this continent, but South America as well. Just, my God.
Not really all of them.
Lady Gaga's Apprentice, I am kind of at the concluding section of the book where he's wrapping up and referencing like prior parts, but basically earlier in the book the method outlined is one of getting sociological and anthropological investigators in dialogue with communities and like surveying like communities and observation. You know, how to activate political organizers by reaching out at the local level and figuring out what people need on the ground instead of approaching with a top-down mandate. The big thing to take away from this whole thing, the pedagogy of the oppressed, I think, is the bucket education and the oppressor-oppression mindset of like just rethinking what you do with the knowledge you have and what you retain it for. This concept of being in dialogue with things instead of in anti-dialogue. I think on my Discord server for Technopoverty, we don't have a lot of hard and fast rules, but one thing I kind of like, I have told people before and I think is worth just keeping in pocket on the internet in general is take note of, are you like in conversation with somebody or are you talking at them? Like what's the exchange going on there?
Do not try my patience further.
Yeah, exactly, Lady Gaga's Apprentice. Like, he published this in '68, and it was as a matter of observing, like, just stuff he was picking up doing literacy programs and doing linguistic psychology stuff. In the previous two parts, I did do some intro and talk more intensely about Freire's background. Also, he had to leave state at some points because them right-wing death squads don't like it when you teach people how to read.
Yeah, imagine that.
Because yeah, I think that the bucket type of education, the rote memorization and the banking of facts instead of like creating like narratives or like creating a curiosity engine to keep going and keep active as a thinker and educator and lifelong learner. The oppressor mentality just like beats you up. Like what happens when like whoever actually cares about that, what happens when the bucket owner dies and you have all these facts in your bucket and no one to report them to? There's like hints of authoritarianism in it is kind of what I'm getting at. I know I've rambled a bit about David Foster Wallace aplenty and how he's very much a dude who wants everyone to chill and watch TV without considering not everybody has equal access to TV. Not everybody gets equal utility out of the bucket as well. Like what is the bucket construct in your mind? Yeah, you'll always need the well to fill your bucket versus building your own well to draw from. That's very eloquent, Captain Quasar. Good fucking statement. Damn.
Yeah, excellent.
Yeah.
Well put.
Let us end this quickly.
I will not state where or who said it, but I saw someone in a film chat say that the Odyssey and Lord of the Rings were basically the same thing with different lore
Which is
in
like
response to the Nolan movie. And I hope they were joking or trying to get my goat or something, but that's the exact thing like bucket education leads to, is like you don't care about the particulars, the specifics, the intentions, the motivations.
Everything is lost on you.
It's X is just Y, right? Like the why care about anything if it's all just going to be your same like generic epic fantasy slot. Like epic fantasy is just dragons and big titties, right? Like
it's all it can be, boys.
Organization is not only directly linked to unity, but is a natural development of that unity. Accordingly, the leader's pursuit of unity is necessarily also an attempt to organize the people, requiring witness to the fact that the struggle for liberation is a common task. This constant, humble, and courageous witness emerging from cooperation in a shared effort, the liberation of women and men, avoids the danger of anti-dialogical control. The form of witness may vary, depending on the historical conditions of any society. Witness itself, however, is an indispensable element of revolutionary action. In order to determine what and how of that witness, it is therefore essential to have an increasingly critical knowledge of the current historical context, the view of the world held by the people, the principal contradiction of society, and the principal aspect of the contradiction. I just want to say, if you haven't heard about, again, what's going on in Crockett, California with the sugar plant and the strike going on there, yeah, there's a reason like you haven't heard about this thing. Like don't get too bad about it and feel like it's impossible to stay informed. Like the obfuscation's very much intentional.
Yeah. Just recognize these things.
Again, I haven't listened to the full thing, but there's some talk about the intentional obfuscation and, again, the way the media will report on something and then make it felt if it's a done story while it's still an ongoing crisis. Just check out the most recent episode of the True Anon podcast. Brace Belden does a great job there. It's just called Sugar. It's got to be one of their free ones because I don't have a paid sub to their Patreon. Since these dimensions of witness are historical, dialogical, and therefore dialectical, witness cannot simply import them from other contexts without previously analyzing its own. To do otherwise is to absolutize and mythologize the relative alienation that becomes avoidable. Witness in the dialogical theory of action is one of the principal expressions of the cultural and educational character of the revolution. The essential elements of witness, which do not historically include consistency between words... I find this interesting because bringing up that it was written in 1968 and he's talking about bearing witness, the kind of neoliberal democratic turn in the 90s was like this very Bill Clinton Dances with Wolves bearing witness, like, I feel your pain, like, we recognize bad things happen, but like, man, what could you do? I wonder how that factors into the feelings, although that does feel like the kind of populist leader he was talking about earlier.
Yeah.
The essential elements of witness, which do not very historically include consistency between words and actions. So, like, I guess it'd be inconsistent words and actions on behalf of, like, the Clintonites. Boldness, which urges the witness to confront existence as a permanent risk. Radicalization, not sectarianism, leading both the witnesses and the ones receiving that witness to increasing action. Courage to love, which, far from bringing accommodation to an unjust world, is rather the transformation of that world in behalf of the increasing liberation of humankind. And faith in the people, since it's to them that witness is made. Although witness to the people, because of their dialectical relations to the dominant elites, also affects the latter, who respond to that witness in their own customary way. All authentic, that is, critical witness, involves the daring to run risks, including the possibility that the leaders will not always win the immediate adherence of the people. Witness which is not borne fruit at a certain moment and under certain conditions is not thereby rendered incapable of bearing fruit tomorrow. Since witness is not an abstract gesture but an action, a confrontation with the world and with the people, it's not static. It is a dynamic element which becomes part of the societal context in which it occurred. From that moment, it does not cease to affect that context. In anti-dialogical action, manipulation anesthetizes the people and facilitates their domination. In dialogical action, manipulation is superseded by authentic organization. In anti-dialogical action, manipulation serves the ends of conquest. In dialogical action, daring and loving witness serve the ends of organization. For the dominant elites, organization means organizing themselves. For the revolutionary leaders, organization means organizing themselves with the people. In the first event, the dominant elite increasingly structures its power so that it can more efficiently dominate and depersonalize. In the second, organization is only corresponding to its nature and objective if it in itself constitutes the practice of freedom. Accordingly, the discipline necessary to any organization must not be confused with regimentation. Interesting. Accordingly, the discipline necessary to any organization must not be confused with regimentation. It is quite true that without leadership, discipline, determination, and objectives, without tasks to fulfill and accounts to be rendered, an organization cannot survive and revolutionary action is thereby diluted. This fact, however, can never justify treating the people as things to be used. The people are already depersonalized by oppression. If the revolutionary leaders manipulate them instead of working towards their consciousness, the very objective of organization, that is liberation, is thereby negated. Damn, I've said it a lot, but like, do see the Odyssey. That passage in particular makes me think of what they did with Sinon in general, Elliot Page's character. He does excellent in there. Again, Lux was sharing on his socials a very good essay in regards to that character, and while I don't think there's a lot you can spoil with the Odyssey, I'd say maybe see the movie and then read that essay just to see if, less to like spoil anything, but just to see if in the void you pick up on any of that sort of read, if there feels like there's any intentionality on part of Nolan, or if it's more external context the author is bringing in. I do think there's something going on there, is all I'll say. Recognition without change is worse than just ignorance of it. Yeah, because Captain Quasar, then it becomes a commodity, you know? Lots of people tend to be like, at least they're honest, but honesty without actually trying is just arrogance. Yeah, because like that's what we're seeing with like the Trump administration and the like, well, at least they're honest. Like, yeah, I know politicians are con men and shit. At least we know these ones are con men. It's like, okay, well, you're like still letting them like sex traffic people and like commit unspeakable acts of violence and extortion.
Yeah.
Like, you can't just be like, well, that's the way it is and act like that's the enlightened take when, like, it's like, that's not new or novel as an observation. It's tired at this point. Mm-hmm. That's fair, Captain Quasar on the tinnitus. And yeah, oh man, so remember all the way back when I was going through Paradise Lost? This is kind of like, boy, I love Milton, but maybe this is also like the big sin of Milton, is how much through like Paradise Lost he's able to reconcile industrialization and the question of free will. Like those big like philosophical concepts, he's able to adapt Christian Protestantism to it, you know? Because I bring up, you know, I've been citing them when we read other things, because like that ending of Paradise Lost where he's laying out, you know, beware of warlords and let the righteous way be one of like earnest conversion, like to make heaven on earth. Like, sure, I can like do like woke readings on it and be all like, you know, it's quite socialist if you lend it this way, or like, you know, Milton's actually kind of a proto-commie or whatever. Like, sure, I can read it that way, but you can also read into that poem like, oh yeah, Christianity's inherently like evidence that capitalism is the way and like the market is the act of God kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. We're just getting back to an even older form of like Peter Thiel doesn't get Lord of the Rings, no, Beto O'Rourke doesn't get Lord of the Rings. Like it doesn't. Everyone gets Lord of the Rings. Like it's art. It's applicable in many situations. It's versatile. That's why it's enduring. But like fuck. The only reason you think there's like this good-bad association with art in this sense is because you had an art teacher in high school who was like, this is a good art, this is a bad art, and you didn't really understand like the context in which things were made, or that for most of history, art's been commissioned by rich people. And in the cases where art hasn't been commissioned by rich people, either way you live under a system which seeks to make it appear that everything produced is mysterious and distant from you, so that you feel powerless as an individual who doesn't get together with friends and put on theatrical productions.
Put on your dumb little plays with your friends.
Definitely put on your dumb little plays with your friends. I cannot stress that enough.
It's so much fun. It's so enlightening.
Organizing the people is the process in which the revolutionary leaders, who are also prevented from saying their own word, initiate the experience of learning how to name the world. This is true learning experience and therefore dialogical. So it is that the leaders cannot say their word alone. They must say it with the people. Leaders who do not act dialogically but insist on imposing their decisions do not organize the people. They manipulate them. They do not liberate, nor are they liberated. They oppress. The fact that the leaders who organize the people do not have the right to arbitrarily impose their word does not mean that they must therefore take a liberalist position to the world and encourage license among the people, who are accustomed to oppression. The dialogical theory of action opposes both authoritarianism and license, and thereby affirms authority and freedom. There is no freedom without authority, but there is also no authority without freedom. All freedom contains the possibility that under special circumstances and at different existential levels, it may become authority. Freedom and authority cannot be isolated, but must be considered in relationship to each other. Authentic authority is not affirmed as such by a mere transfer of power, but through delegation or in sympathetic adherence. If authority is merely transferred from one group to another, or is imposed upon the majority, it degenerates into authoritarianism. Authority can avoid conflict with freedom only if it is freedom become authority. Hypertrophy of one provokes atrophy of the other. Just as authority cannot exist without freedom, and vice versa, authoritarianism cannot exist without denying freedom, nor license without denying authority. In the theory of dialogical action, organization requires authority, so it cannot be authoritarian. It requires freedom, so it cannot be licentious. Organization is, rather, a highly educational process in which leaders and people together experience true authority and freedom, which they then seek to establish in society by transforming the reality which mediates them. All right, I'm getting to the end here. This next section is called cultural synthesis. Cultural action is always a systematic and deliberate form of action which operates upon the social structure, either with the objective of preserving that structure or of transforming it. As a form of deliberate and systematic action, all cultural action has its theory which determines its ends and thereby defines its methods. Cultural action either serves domination, consciously or unconsciously, or it serves the liberation of men and women. As these dialectically opposed types of cultural action operate in and upon the social structure, they create dialectical relations of permanence and change. The social structure, in order to be, must become. In other words, becoming is the way the social structure expresses duration, in the Bergsonian sense of the term. Dialogical cultural action does not have as its aim the disappearance of the permanence change dialectic, an impossible aim, since the disappearance of the dialectic would require the disappearance of the social structure itself, and thus of men. It aims, rather, at surmounting the antagonistic contradictions of the social structure, thereby achieving the liberation of human beings. Anti-dialogical cultural action, on the other hand, aims to mythicize such contradictions, thereby hoping to avoid or hinder insofar as possible the radical transformation of reality. Anti-dialogical action explicitly or implicitly aims to persevere, within the social structure, situations which favor its own agents. Preserve, not persevere. While the latter would never accept a transformation of the structure sufficiently radical to overcome its antagonistic contradictions, they may accept reforms which do not affect their power of decision over the oppressed. Hence, this modality of action involves the conquest of the people, their division, their manipulation, and cultural invasion. It is necessarily and fundamentally an induced action. Dialogical action, however, is characterized by the supersedence of any induced aspect. The incapacity of anti-dialogical cultural action to supersede its induced character results from its objective, domination. The capacity of dialogical cultural action to do this lies in its objective, liberation. In cultural invasion, the actors draw the thematic content of their action from their own values and ideology. Their starting point is their own world, from which they enter the world of those they invade. In cultural synthesis, the actors who come in from another world to the world of the people do not do so as invaders. They do not come to teach or to transmit or to give anything, but rather to learn, with the people, about the people's world. In cultural invasion, the actors, who need not even go personally to the invaded culture, increasingly their actions carried out by technological instruments, superimpose themselves on the people, who are assigned the role of spectators or objects. In cultural synthesis, the actors become integrated with the people, who are co-authors of the action that both perform upon the world.
Buddy, let's turn this cuck session into a devil's threesome.
You know?
I mean, if we're gonna put it in terms like the contemporary American mythology understands, cuckoldry is the operative metaphor. We're all just dudes in the chair waiting for something to happen.
Fuck.
But you can get out of the chair, fellas. In cultural invasion, you might have to be a little bisexual with it, but you can get out of the chair, fellas.
That's true.
In cultural invasion, both the spectators and the reality to be preserved are objects of the actor's action. In cultural synthesis, there are no spectators. The object of the actor's action is the reality to be transformed for the liberation of men. Cultural synthesis is thus a mode of action for confronting culture itself, as the preserver of the very structures by which it was formed. Cultural action, as historical action, is an instrument for superseding the dominant alienated and alienating culture. In this case, every authentic revolution is a cultural revolution. The investigation of the people's generative themes or meaningful thematics described in Chapter 3 constitutes the starting point for the process of action as cultural synthesis. Indeed, it is not really possible to divide this process into two separate steps. First, thematic investigation, and then action as cultural synthesis. Such a dichotomy would imply an initial phase in which the people, as passive objects, would be studied, analyzed, and investigated by the investigators, a procedure congruent with anti-dialogical action. Such division would lead to the naive conclusion that action as synthesis follows from action as invasion.
I will spare the lives of your friends if you surrender now. Simply lay down your weapon and show yourself. Surely you don't wish any harm to them.
Yeah, oh man, the leveling effects of the culture war have been really getting to me.
Those who are invaded, whatever their level, rarely go beyond the models which the invaders prescribe for them. In cultural synthesis, there are no invaders, hence there are no imposed models. In their stead, there are actors who critically analyze reality, never separating this analysis from action, and intervene as subjects in the historical process. Instead of following predetermined plans, leaders and people, mutually identified, together create the guidelines of their action. In this synthesis, leaders and people are somehow reborn in new knowledge and new action. Knowledge of the alienated culture leads to transforming action, resulting in a culture which is being freed from alienation. The more sophisticated knowledge of the leaders is remained in the empirical knowledge of the people, while the latter is refined by the former. In cultural synthesis, and only in cultural synthesis, is it possible to resolve the contradiction between the worldview of the leaders and that of the people, to the enrichment of both. Cultural synthesis does not deny the differences between the two views. Indeed, it is based on these differences. It does deny the invasion of one by the other, but affirms the undeniable support each gives to the other.
How's your one-man war going?
You know, kind of shitty at the moment, a little repetitive, but we're moving.
Do you just have no squad for this last level?
Yeah, not yet.
They just kill all your guys?
They really did. They're just kind of fucking me on this one a little bit.
I mean, oppressor oppression. God.
Revolutionary leaders must avoid organizing themselves apart from the people. Whatever contradiction to the people may occur fortuitously due to certain historical conditions must be solved, not augmented by the cultural invasion of an imposed relationship. Cultural synthesis is the only way. Revolutionary leaders commit many errors and miscalculations by not taking into account something so real as the people's view of the world, a view which explicitly and implicitly contains their concerns, their doubts, their hopes,
their way of seeing the leaders, their perceptions of themselves and of the oppressors, their religious beliefs, almost always syncretic. Almost always syncretic. Wow, that is such a great parenthetical. Like, yeah, their religious beliefs aren't going to make sense. Like, my prevailing theory, I think, holds true. It's like, yeah, it's not about being coherent. It's about rationalizing the libidinal. Like, whatever tells you is the right move to get those dopamine hits from your brain, like, you're going to rationalize that as the voice of God.
It's true. God damn it.
The rebellious reactions. None of these elements can be seen separately. For an interaction, all of them compose a totality. The oppressor is interested in knowing this totality only as an aid to his action of invasion in order to dominate or preserve domination. For the revolutionary leaders, the knowledge of this totality is indispensable to their action as cultural synthesis. Cultural synthesis, precisely because it is a synthesis, does not mean that the objectives of revolutionary action should be limited by the aspirations expressed in the worldview of the people. If this were to happen, in the guise of respect for that view, the revolutionary leaders would be passively bound to that vision. Neither invasion by the leaders of the people's worldview, nor mere adaptation by the leaders to the often naive aspirations of the people is acceptable. To be concrete, if at a given historical moment the basic aspiration of the people goes no further than the demand for salary increases, the leaders can commit one of two errors. They can limit their action to stimulating this one demand, or they can overrule this popular aspiration and substitute something more far-reaching, but something which has not yet come to the forefront of the people's attention. In the first case, the revolutionary leaders follow a line of adaptation to the people's demands. In the second case, by disrespecting the aspirations of the people, they fall into cultural invasion. The solution lies in synthesis. The leaders must on one hand identify with the people's demand for higher salaries, while on the other they must pose the meaning of that very demand as a problem. By doing this, the leaders pose as a problem a real, concrete, historical situation of which the salary demand is one dimension. It will thereby become clear that the salary demands alone cannot comprise a definitive solution. The essence of this solution can be found in the previously cited statement by bishops of the Third World that if the workers do not somehow come to be the owners of their own labor, all structural reforms will be ineffective. They must be owners, not sellers, of their labor. For any purchase or sale of labor is a type of slavery. Jacob, you got a 3% raise and inflation's 12%?
Yeah.
Cool. Free market's fixing shit.
Yeah, I'm sure it'll all work out. I'm not too worried about it. It's America. No.
To achieve critical consciousness of the fact that it is necessary to be the owner of one's own labor, that labor constitutes part of the human person, and that a human being can neither be sold nor can sell himself, is to go to a step beyond the description of palliative solutions. It is to engage in authentic transformation of reality in order, by humanizing that reality, to humanize women and men. In the anti-dialogical theory of action, cultural invasion serves the ends of manipulation, which in turn serves the ends of conquest, and conquest the ends of domination. Cultural synthesis serves the ends of organization. Organization serves the ends of liberation. This work deals with a very obvious truth. Just as the oppressor, in order to oppress, needs a theory of oppressive action, so the oppressed, in order to become free, also need a theory of action. The oppressor elaborates his theory of action without the people, for he stands against them. Nor can the people, as long as they are crushed and oppressed, internalizing the image of the oppressor, construct by themselves the theory of their liberating action. Only in the encounter of the people with the revolutionary leaders, in their communion, in their praxis, can this theory be built.
And that is the end of Paulo Freire's Pedagogy of the Oppressed.
Shit.
Yeah.
All right.
But yes, that language of oppressor oppressed. I wonder how radical it was to just like a white bread American in the 60s if they're seeing this at all, considering their lack of vision and lack of ability. Like, people thought aspics were a good idea. Just put everything in a fucking gelatin mold, you know?
Those things were awful and horrifying.
And it's like such a basic understanding of like, yeah, don't turn yourself into a reciprocal dead-end vessel. Like, you have to create a method of stimulating your brain for continuity's sake. Not even so that you can, I mean, yes, it's so you can learn some theory and some practicality and get a sense of your oppression and who you are, but like, even if you're the most anarchist individualist, like, no ideas will govern me, I'm my own person, well, like, don't you want to, like, exercise your brain in a way to where you can consciously continue to be flexible in your thinking throughout your aging, or do you want to just, like, stay in 1994 forever?
Apparently a lot of people's answer is stay in 1994 forever.
I mean, Doom Eternal did enough numbers to get Doom the Dark Ages going. Mm-hmm. Although, didn't they do good numbers on those and still lay off plenty of people?
Yeah, I was going to say, it didn't mean anything.
Didn't mean anything. Machine need churn. Something about what that Karl and that Fred fella said in that other thing we read on stream about, like, you're never going to be the bourgeois because the cost of things is such a scale that you're just going to go in debt keeping up. No, that's not applicable to today. That was written in the 1850s.
That'd be crazy. Saying things don't change. Get the fuck out of here, ass.
Oh, I'll check out this trailer in a little, Captain Quasar. Just checking the notes I left on my Discord.
Foolish bravery will cost you your life, Grace.
But yeah, to get back to something I said at the start of the stream, in regards to the Clayface trailer, in regards to that Odyssey take. Let's go back to that Odyssey Lord of the Rings take. Like, somebody telling me without elaboration that, well, the Odyssey and Lord of the Rings are the same thing, just with different lore. Like, that is a statement that if you are to start picking at it or digging at them or asking them to elaborate, it just seems trollish to ask. And there wasn't like a follow-up statement or anything like that in the conversation. It's just that was a take to be had and polished and seen. And the same way, it is a take to be had and polished and seen to be like, you know, it's a real smart idea that the Clayface movie decided to be a body horror thing. There's that distance. Like, at the beginning of the stream, I said, I think you can see this bucket mentality in the way Americans want to be taken seriously, but don't want to take things seriously. Like, when you see the take, the Odyssey and Lord of the Rings are the same thing with different lore. To take it seriously would require you to like investigate and to like for that person to be taken seriously, like you didn't have to earnestly engage them and ask them for the differences, and then they wouldn't be able to follow up and elaborate in that way.
Yeah, like they're just not like arguing in good faith in any way.
But to take it seriously is to be like, yes, that is a cogent, real statement. I will respect it, like unchallenged. Like it is a serious statement that is a take.
It is the stupidest take, but it is a take.
Damn, that's tough, Lady Gaga's Apprentice. I do wonder as well, because I do think the Lord of the Rings, I mean, especially because we exist in a post-industrial age, this isn't a guarantee that it'll stay around longer, but I just think the Lord of the Rings exists in so much print media and has such a huge cultural thumbprint that it's documented. I don't know if it's like in the Library of Congress or if there's like a UK equivalent of that where like it's in a national archive or museum of some sort, but it is a cherished enough work, I feel.
Thank God.
Where are your precious freedom fighters, Christopher? You're all alone. Surrender now and believe.
Yeah, Wizworld. They're going to be digging up Darth Vader action figures long before any of this is remembered. Scholars will debate which was Merry and which was Pippin.
Fuck, that'd be so fucking funny.
They're gonna be so confused by. They're gonna be so confused not only by the differing accounts in the various artwork, but all the slash fiction that the movies created. Eventually, they'll they'll excavate the Hobbiton set in New Zealand and claim to have found a historical grounding for the books, like Finding Troy.
Fuck, that'd be so funny.
Amazing.
Further verifying that it actually happened.
Struggle ends here.
I mean, Frodo is baby doll Captain Quasar. I mean, I'm thinking of like Achilles and Patroclus now, with all the fights over whether they're gay or not. I say let them boys kiss.
Let the boys kiss. Let there be queers.
Because I think, okay, so honestly, this is something getting back to like the cultural legibility of Lord of the Rings. Tolkien's like consciously trying to make a British like myth. He's dissatisfied with like Beowulf and Arthurian legend. Like he is in some ways making a white, he's like, it's a way, there is like a white Anglo-Saxon Protestant myth in there. And there is a unified kind of British white people's thing going on with it. Catholic, not Protestant. Yeah, sorry, Wizworld, sorry. Yeah, not explicitly. There is questions of like, what are orcs really? Because there are instances in the books of them being confused with men and them being described with Orientalist features where it's like, what's your sliding scale where an orc ceases to be a human here, Mr. Tolkien? Yeah. The grandson calls the Easterners a racist term, Captain Quasar?
Simply lay down your weapon and show yourself. Surely you don't wish any harm to come to them.
I just want to reel back to like, that is fascinating, Wiz, because I am thinking about when I read it. How assumptive I was in that sense with at least the hobbits and the humans.
You have no options left, Chris. There is only one way out for you now. I will see to that personally.
Oh no.
Okay, okay.
Sorry, I was getting invested in the Jacob game.
Do not make me angry, Christopher.
Yeah,
Try
Christopher,
to reason with you. Do not try my patience further.
What I was trying to get at with Tolkien and the Omni narrative is because of the way it's constructed in trying to be an ideological thing. I'm not saying Tolkien's a white nationalist in that sense, but I can see how a white nationalist finds appeal in it. And I think I've just been annoyed a bit recently by like the focus on Lord of the Rings back and forth as far as yes, Andrew Reel, fuck Alex Carr, fuck Peter Thiel. I don't know how much longer like quipping about like them not getting Lord of the Rings is gonna be a thing, or like I don't know, it's just been grating on me recently. It feels like it's been going on for a bit in my particular sphere.
We know you are here. It is only a matter of time before we find you. Show yourself, and we will be gentle with you.
Yeah, I'd be very curious as well, because there's those letters to his son where he's said some very interesting things about pipe bombing factories and such.
Wait, what?
Maybe just look that one up when we're done here tonight, folks. I think to Captain Quasar, what it really boils down to is like, we are nostalgic for the Peter Jackson Lord of the Ring movies as a cultural point. And it's one of like those monocultural things people remember as like their thing from their childhood. So it's still something a lot of Americans in a broad sense of the range like feel they have possession or familiarity with, that they can talk to other people about with like a 90% chance that like, yeah, this is a cultural thing we can talk about.
You know what I'm referencing. Okay. Doing better this time.
I also think Luddites were cool in the sense that they were tech skeptical, not just completely tech stupid like barbarians.
Like dullard idiots, just be like, I don't like
machine. Like, no, dude. Like, there are various concerns about labor they were raising.
And you're like, wow, my boss already sucks. If I give him more power, he's probably become more shitty. Do I want him to be like that? Probably not. Could that benefit me in any material way? Probably not. These fuckers.
Do not make me angry, Christopher. I have tried to reason with you. Do not try my patience further.
We're really trying his patience. Wiz, I think another failure of the Jackson movies, I'm annoyed at how much Søren is just seen as the Eye now, or the dude from the prologue of Lord of the Rings, because in the text, I feel so much of like what makes Sauron cool and work is how much of a structural presence he is, as far as like it's always the influence of Sauron, or like the plans of Sauron, or the machinations of Sauron. Like it's the influencing ideology and the politics of Mordor are Sauron in a way that I don't think the films really get across.
I don't wish any further bloodshed in this matter. We have won, Chris. You must see that. Your cause has ended.
Talked about it a bit earlier, but again, Tolkien does a very nice little talk about orc talk and how empty and useless it is, and how much it sounds like what Freire's on about when talking about the banking method of education and the recitation of knowledge and just like giving facts and receiving facts instead of being in dialogue. It sounds like anti-dialogue. Also, while I don't remember the specifics of it, the actual debate between Gandalf and Saruman in the Two Towers after Isengard, or is it in Return of the? It's in Return of the King. It's after the Two Towers, but like when they go when they go see Saruman at the tower and he's locked up top and he starts talking to them, like
bravery will cost you your life, Grace.
there's a certain, again, because like Tolkien being a language guy and focused on linguistics, like there's something to the dialogue and the power of word. In the same way, talking about, you know, Søren is the language and the ideology and the politics of Mordor. There's the failed attempt or the attempt of the wizards to do the same with their dialoguing and interfacing with the world. Yeah, Lady Gaga's Apprentice, give The Hobbit a read. It's brief and nice.
Just keep up with me. I got a hideout over this.
Oh. Hit that good save spot, finally.
Yeah, if there's still more to go, I still have an essay or two I have in mind for next session.
Oh,
and
yeah. Looks like there
SAFN
might be.
Studios in New York. The Soviet armed forces have tonight declared a total victory over the underground rebellion. After numerous barbaric attacks by the rebels on Soviet bases in each borough of New York, the situation is finally under control. We continue to receive reports of minor incidents around the city, but it is clear that the rebels have been defeated. Tragically, our beloved Commander-in-Chief, General Tatarin, has paid the ultimate price in his relentless fight against the Freedom Phantom and his henchmen. He was assassinated earlier tonight in a dastardly rebel ambush. We go live now to Governor's Island, where the
Governor's
funeral
Island.
ceremony is about to commence.
I keep wanting to like CinemaSins this game and be all like, it's 2003, the USSR is dead, but then I just remember this game has its whole alternate history fanfic where the USSR is still alive.
Yeah.
We came to restore law and order, to secure peace and stability in this region,
Law and order.
and save the American citizens from
Save the
brutality and
American
exploitation.
citizen.
And this is the brave general's reward.
I feel like each level takes me about 3
You
hours to
shall
get
not
through.
have died in vain. As second in command, I respectfully take his place, and I vow today to track down the cowardly scum who committed this outrage. I swear revenge today on the so-called Freedom Phantom, Christopher
Wait, so
Stone,
you're like a
and puny army of
you're like a
remaining
guerrilla
rebels for the brutal
rebel
killing of our
force
beloved leader,
that the
Tatarin.
military manipulated
Stone, your
in
days are
order
numbered.
to take out the military
You and your
guy
followers will be flashed
so that
out
the dude
and
manipulated you
destroyed
could
like
get
sewer
like
rats.
this dude used you to get a promotion?
Long live the Soviet Union!
I think so, yeah.
Long live the revolution!
He
Long
pooed.
live Soviet government
Well, like
of the
it's like
United
it's Charlie Wilson's War, but dumb.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Where's our new spot?
Is it a subway station? A different kind of Ninja Turtles base?
Right.
Captain Quasar, I vaguely remember playing it. That was on PlayStation 1, right? Didn't get too far in it, but you know what? Bring it to mind. I wouldn't mind revisiting it.
Yeah, I haven't heard of it.
It's like a third-person shooter, if I remember right. All right, let's go ahead and save and call it here for tonight.
Look at that, folks.
Jacob found a new home, a new community, a new base.
Check this out. You even got a computer. Hey, Chris. I think the mold here looks better than our old
Got a
place.
PC, cool. We got Chinese food.
Sneak down here, hang out.
Nice.
They're coming back though. The Reds were gunning for them pretty hard.
Yeah, I don't think the Reds are coming back either, homie.
Jacob, we finished a book tonight. One of many that we've been going through here on the Summer Scramble, but thank you all for Thank you all for chilling with us for this whole stream. We did this in more episodes than I was anticipating. We also straight up didn't realize we were even going to pair this with Freedom Fighters until like 2 hours before the first time we did it. Like,
literally
we
was
had
just
Freedom
last
Fighters
week.
sitting around, we were all like, well, what the fuck should we... I mean, we had Pedagogy sitting around, we were like, well, what the fuck should we play it with? Stick around as Jacob continues playing. I'm going to read Walter Benjamin's Critique of Violence on Monday, and we'll work our way through that while seeing what's left of this game. Again, we're going to be watching The Monkey this Sunday, and then maybe next Sunday we'll be doing The Return, as always. If you want to check out info on how to get to the Technopoverty Theater, just check out our Patreon. Chat with us on Discord. Support our friends in our network as well. Actually, let's see who is on right now. Thank you, Captain Quasar, for being here. Lady Gaga, Wiz World, L-Man, Mask for Mask, 3256, all our beautiful, wonderful regulars. Ja, it's been a pleasure seeing you here.
We love seeing you all. It's a great time.
It looks like, no Pixel Goblins right now. So we're going to go ahead and just have a good night, y'all. As always, though, check out the Pixel Goblins. Check out Wizworld Live. Check out Fight Opera.
Check them out.
Y'all have a good night. Y'all take care. See you Monday.
We know when you stream that you all have choices. We're glad that you chose Technopoverty to spend your Thursday evening. Just sit back, put your tray tables up, and we'll see you later.
Take care, y'all. Night, night, L-Man. Night, night, Ghost Bro.